Good evening and welcome. Thank you for coming. So many of you, which is lovely to see. Thank you very much. Obviously, democracy is thriving in Kingston, and I'd love to see you come again as many times as you wish. It's wonderful to see you. Welcome to the meeting of Place Committee. Welcome to the members of the public with us tonight and those online. My name's Councillor Emily Davey. I'm co-chair of this committee, and I will chair this meeting. In the event of an emergency and the sounding of an alarm, the emergency evacuation procedure is to leave by the nearest exit. Anyone requiring assistance should remain in their seats and an officer will assist you from the building. Anyone in the public gallery or watching at home who wishes to follow the agenda from their tablet or smartphone can do so by going to www.kingston.gov.uk and following the link from your council on the home page. The meeting is being filmed for live broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, and an archived version will be available to view on the channel after the meeting finishes. The broadcast will be suspended during any adjournments in proceedings, and if the committee resolves to consider information as exempt business. Members are reminded that microphones must be switched on and spoken into clearly for the broadcast. Please, can everyone present in the meeting also ensure their mobile phones are switched off or in silent mode for the duration of this meeting? May I invite the members of the committee to introduce themselves, starting at the end.
Hello, Ollie Waring, Councillor in Norbiton Ward.
Evening, James Manthor, Councillor in Canberra Gardens Ward.
Good evening, Gazetta Skish, Chessington South and Malden Rushhead Ward.
Roger Hayes, Kingston Town Ward.
Evening, Mark Durrant from New Malden Village Ward.
Hello, Andrew Bolton from Coomville Ward.
Councillor Mark Bainan from King George's and Sunray Ward.
Ian Manders from Alexandra Ward.
Councillor Nardelli from Kingston Town Ward. Alison Holt from Surbiton Hill Ward.
Ian George from Coombe Hill Ward.
We've also got a number of officers who I was going to ask to introduce themselves, in particular Michelle, who's come to see what the committee's like, our new Head of Democratic Services.
Hello everyone, yes, I'm the new Head of Democratic and Electoral Services.
Hi, I'm Louise Footner, the Exec Director for Residents and Communities.
Good evening, Deborah Dibb, Assistant Director for Climate, Environment and Registrations.
Good evening, Matthew Hill, Assistant Director for Highways, Transport and Regulatory Services.
And I'm Matthew Essex, Executive Director of Place.
Thank you. We've got a packed agenda tonight. And we'll start with public question time. I'm going to hope that everybody, not only public question time is for 30 minutes. It's non-negotiable. I can't extend it. It's going to be 30 minutes. Anybody who doesn't get their questions answered, it can be put in writing. The other aspect of it is when we get on to discussing the petitions and discussing the agenda, we need to stay focused because otherwise we're going to be here to the early hours of the morning. Okay, so let's start off with public question time is number one on the agenda. We have a period of no more than 30 minutes for the residents of the borough and representative organisations operating within the borough to ask questions on matters relevant to the committee. We received 13 questions from 9 residents in total this part of the meeting before the deadline. One was subsequently withdrawn. If you have submitted 2 questions, the second question shall be considered only after the other questions have had an opportunity, other questioners have had an opportunity to ask their first question. Any question which cannot be dealt with during public question time, there's a lack of time or need for additional information will be dealt with by a written answer. One supplementary question shall be allowed, provided it is for clarification, arises directly out of the original question or response and is not a statement. I would ask everyone to please be concise when submitting your questions so we're able to deal with as many as possible tonight. For avoidance of doubt, I've received governance advice that in accordance with Procedure Rule 32, suspension of procedural rules under Procedural 16 is only applicable in full council, but not committee meetings. As a chair, I also have no discretion to extend this 30-minute public question time or allow more than one supplementary question. So I know my place in all this. Anyway, so let's start with we're starting with Mr. Kent. Would you like to come forward? And you're going to be
Steve Kent.
Steve Kent. Steve Kent. Sorry. Oh, there are two. Sorry, I didn't realize two Kents. Sorry. Yes, I've got Peter Kent. Don't you worry. I've got a Steve Kent, and you've got to press the button, the red button, to speak. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. In 2021, Kingston's recycling rate stood at 48%. Yet council figures advertised on the 16th of October during Recycle Week state that this figure has dropped to 46%. Whilst Kingston remains slightly above the average figure for English councils, why should residents tolerate a continuous decline in the efficiency in how their waste is handled? Thank you.
Councillor Delly, would you like to respond?
Yes, very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kent, for this question. Kingston finished, you're absolutely right, in 2022-23 with a recycling rate of 46.5, placing it in third place in London, a drop of 1.6% when compared to 21-22. The decline in recycling rate matched the trend seen across England. The main factor for this seems to be lower volumes of garden waste for the duration during that very dry and hot summer we had. Although it is likely that a small number of other factors also played a role, such as the ongoing impact from the COVID pandemic and, of course, the cost of living and changing consumer habits. This change in recycling rates needs to be seen in context. The amount of waste and recycling materials collected also showed a decrease, with a reduction of 25 kilograms per household in Kingston. While recycling is important, our main aim is to reduce the amount of materials that end up as waste or for recycling at all, and this is the greater environmental and financial impact. However, the council is working to increase the proportion of household waste that is recycled, composted or reused, with a focus on increasing the use of food waste services and reducing contamination from recycling bins placed in flats in particular. This will be strengthened by the introduction of a new waste and recycling contract, which is due to come online in April 25, under the delivery for the Recycling Improvement Plan, which will see further funded upgrades to recycling containers in blocks of flats, among others. It is, however, a good news story that we saw an increase in food waste. The figure for April to October 2023 was 2,487 tonnes, rising April to October 24 to 2,806 tonnes. This additional 319 tonnes represents an increase of 12.85% from last year, nigh on 13%. Keeping food waste out of the general waste, that being our black bins, is hugely important in tackling our waste disposal. But more can be done and will be done to help this number grow. Much work and comms are being done in this area, and we expect this figure to really increase up to and into the new year. Of course, while also trying to educate around about the overspend on weekly groceries ending up in food waste. And another way that we can keep our recycling figures up is around the issue of flexible plastics, the foil, the crisp packets, the bags, the plastic that the fruit and vegetables come into, all the stuff that bends and folds. We don't have a provision for this in our recycling, but, and this is a big but, the supermarkets do and can use them. And every supermarket has a large bin for flexible plastics and asks us to take them back, thus keeping it out of our bin liner and our black bins for general waste. We are expecting to hear more from central government soon regarding the new measures to encourage better outcomes for soft and flexible plastics, to work with retailers to use more reusable plastics. And finally, I had hoped that we'd have some pamphlets here to help you with with the recycling. I had a suspicion that we had such a large community group here that's interested in its community that your recycling would be high on your agendas too. But I can't actually see the leaflets. But if you go onto the website, there's so much information on there about what we can do with plastics to reuse or recycle. It's fascinatingly interesting. Please do have a look.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. You welcomed the large number of people here, which is great to take part in this democracy and stuff. We've got a lot of people who want to ask questions, and when they do, we have these long prepared answers that go way off the subject. Can we just answer the question? Otherwise, you're going to prevent people from having a say.
Thank you for your comment. I'm not sure it's actually in the Constitution, just that. I would like to have the supplementary question, and then we'll continue with the list of questions.
Thank you, Councillor Nardelli, for the answer. Obviously, yes, okay, it's good to see the council is making strides to improve the rate. But if we look back slightly further to 2018, it was 49.4% before rising to 52% in 2019. And a lot of our waste, which is missing the recycling, is being fly tipped and littered, which is increasing across the borough. So what plans do you have, should we say, to tackle the waste which is fly tipped, which could be recycled instead? Thank you.
I think, as I said in the last piece, we've got a new contract coming out in April 25, and there are provisions in there for fly tipping. We also, at the moment, I don't know, can go on about this now, we should cut it shorter, Councillor George. We have a new enforcement team that are going out and have been in place for about 2 or 3 weeks, that are going out actively picking up and dealing with fly tipping to get bundles, to get addresses, so that we can go back to the offenders where there'll be a letter, a second letter, and then some prosecutions going on.
Thank you. Would you like to return to your seat? And I'll take the second question. I'm going to massacre someone's name. I'm sorry. It's Rakashana Billy Moria. I've totally mangled it. Sorry.
Rukshana Billamoria. Good evening, councillors. The council website defines the remit of strategic committees, of which place is one, as setting borough-wide policy and making decisions on services which go beyond a single neighbourhood. The petitions you will discuss tonight concern a very specific local issue. All previous discussions have been held with Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee, who created this mess in the first place. So why has this been conflated to a borough-wide policy issue when similar discussions regarding the removal of the Tolworth Road barrier were not?
Thank you. That's it. Thank you. Could you turn off your mic so Councillor Nardelli could respond? Thank you.
I have another prepared answer, if that's okay. The reason this item is being considered by this committee and taken to provide in this report, in particular, the policy background to the key points and the constitutional context in paragraph 5 are as follows, and I'm going to read out now some of that constitution. If a report raises wider implications or is considered to be of particular interest to a wider community, it can be considered by the relevant strategic committee as detailed in part 3A of the Council's Constitution. To provide further details, part 3A 2.2.2 states that the Place Committee is responsible for the following relevant functions. The first one being cycling, walking and healthy streets. The second, environment. The third, air quality. The fourth, transport and public transport. In accordance with part 3A, 3.2, the role of neighbourhood committees is to support and complement the work of the strategic committees. In accordance with 3.4, the neighbourhood committees are empowered to take any decision that affects a single neighbourhood committee area, provided that they are within the council's policy, there is no conflict with council policy, or The impact for the decision extends no further than the boundaries of the relevant neighbourhood area. The monitoring officer is responsible for interpreting the Constitution and is satisfied that, as this item has policy implications as detailed in the report, it is therefore constitutionally sound for the Place Committee to consider this item. The time frame was extended to allow for the collection of additional monitoring data that was not adversely influenced by the Tolworth roundabout redesign works, which were completed in April 2020.
Thank you. Do you have any supplementary question?
I have many questions, but as Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee have washed their hands of this, should any of the Surbiton Neighbourhood councillors be speaking tonight for or against the petitions?
It's understood on the Constitution that actually it's down to the committee to decide that. But I have to ask the committee to vote on it later. So thank you for your question. If you'd like to go back to your seat. We'll have the next person is Rhys Thomas.
Good evening, councillors. The Healthy Streets scorecard ranks London boroughs according to how well their streets promote the health and well-being of their residents. Kingston ranks 20th out of the 32 London boroughs. In addition to low traffic neighbourhoods, which are the policy of Kingston Council, what other measures is Kingston Council considering to further increase the healthiness of our streets?
Thank you. Councillor Nardelli, you're busy tonight.
I am. I'm not sure there's enough water there to keep me going. Thank you for the question. The latest Healthy Streets scorecard for Kingston now ranks us 6th out of 19 for the outer London boroughs. This have come up from 9 with a slight recommendation on how well we were doing. We as a council are also looking to bring along more school streets and to continue with the completion of cycle lanes. RBK is also liaising with TfL for more bus routes to cater for the residents' requirements. We, as a council, are introducing and augmenting initiatives to enhance street health and well-being. While safer streets, formerly low traffic neighbourhoods or LTNs, are a significant component. We are expanding and enhancing cycling and walking routes to encourage sustainable travel, working with partners like Go Cycle programme, teaching cycling to schools, park run at the weekends as a family event, so increasing our active travel infrastructure. With safer, cleaner, greener, accessible pathways for cyclists and pedestrians. We have implemented a borough-wide residential roads, with the exception, unfortunately, of Kingston Vale, to 20 miles an hour speed limit, which has improved safety and has proved to encourage walking and cycling and scootering through giving a sense of safety to enjoy a more pleasant environment for active travel, which has reduced the number of accidents and car journeys. We've introduced and will continue to roll out school streets, which restrict car access around schools during peak times. This initiative reduces air pollution and enhances safety for children, and most definitely encourages walking, cycling, and of course, children scootering to school. Council is investing in public spaces by improving street lighting, seating, and green spaces and sports amenity, all of which enhance social interaction and physical activity. And furthermore, and finally, our neighbourhood committees are there to work closely with local communities at ward level.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question?
No supplementary question from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I've got Carol Bucknan.
Hello, I'm Carol Buchanan and I live in Alexandra Ward. Low traffic neighbourhoods are interventions designed to reduce road dangers, reduce reliance on cars, and encourage more people to walk and cycle. They are often placed in areas of relative socio-economic deprivation. We know, for example, that King Charles Road and surrounding areas in Surbiton Hill are more deprived than those in Berrylands. Access to local parks and green spaces are a lifeline for these families. Given, therefore, these clear implications for health equity, how can Kingston Council support and enhance the use of low traffic neighbourhoods and other measures to promote health and well-being, particularly for more deprived residents?
Thank you. Councillor Nardelli.
I finished, sorry. Oh.
Thank you, Carol. The Council understands there is a clear link between active travel, reduced reliance on private cars, and better public health outcomes. This is reflected in the Kingston Health and Care Plan 2022 to 24. I can give you the website here. It's www.southwestlondon.org. I've been reading this document for the past 2 days. It is fascinating and really interesting. We support our physical measures with complementary measures, including cycle training and school travel planning. I hope you can take a look at this document as it covers all aspects of life through our borough, giving every child the best start in life, enabling all people to maximise on their capabilities and to have better control over their lives, ensuring a healthy standard of living for all, creating fair employment and good work for all, creating and developing healthy and sustainable places and communities, whilst recognising all carers, tackling inequalities in health to reduce disparities for those who are most disadvantaged, tackling obesity, promoting the mental health and resilience of our residents to improve health and well-being across their life course, to support people to have good physical and mental health, have a healthy weight and regular physical activities to prevent ill health, support people to manage long-term conditions, reduce health inequalities for adults with or at risk of being in poorer health, and finally, for people in their later life, to maximise people's independence and resilience to be enabled to live well at home where this is their choice, reducing loneliness, isolation for everyone, particularly older people and their carers, and enable people to live and end their last years in well life. But I'd have a good look at that report. It really is a good, say a good read, sounds like a novel. It's very factual and it's well worth a look. It's inspiring.
Thank you very much. And no supplementaries.
Excellent. I have the next person. Peter Kent this time. It's Peter Kent. Now, I warn you, we've got we're coming up with 17 minutes, 17 and a half minutes we've had already.
Sorry, just 13.
13 minutes left, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Peter Kent. I live in Berrylands, and my question is about the King Charles Road barrier. The imposition of the King Charles Road barrier took place without a clear statement of objectives beyond vague generic platitudes. The council has never stated any specific quantified objectives or how the barrier will implement those objectives. The barrier was inserted without considering the broader context. It was and is a solution without a problem. The council's LTN area map clearly highlights the disparity between the few properties to the south of the barrier that might derive some benefit and the many hundreds to the north and east that are harmed by increased traffic levels. A dotted line on a map does not create a low traffic neighbourhood. The council has attempted to downplay the negative effects of the barrier without offering any evidence of benefit. Statutory guidance from the Department of Transport requires that schemes aren't adversely affecting other areas and local support is paramount, and that schemes should have clear aims and objectives with a rationale and evidence to support intervention and measurable metrics of success. What metrics, evidence and data can the council present that demonstrates that the barrier is meeting its supposed objectives?
Back to you, Councillor Nardelli.
It's feeling like the Councillor Nardelli show here. So this one, I'm going to toss across the table. Evidence is set out in the committee report. The statutory guidance you refer to remains in the draft form, and it's quite specific, and I'm going to hand it over to officers.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. You're referring to the draft guidance. So I think the draft of Department of Transport guidance remains draft and has no legal standing at the present time, is my understanding of it.
Do you have a supplementary question? Thank you. Just got, let's hand a supplementary question, please.
Right. I was hoping. Oh, can you hear? Yeah, on. Yes, I was hoping to actually get an answer to that question. But with regards to benefits data, cycling has been cited as one possible reason for low traffic neighbourhoods, not that we're dealing with that here. And my supplementary question is, in the report, why did the council report not include the data from the cycle counter that was placed across the barrier between February 2021 and January 2023, which clearly showed declining levels of cycle use?
Councillor Nardelli.
I'm going to have to throw this one over to the officers as well.
Councillor, I can't tell you the reason why we haven't got the cycle data in the report. What I can tell you is that cycle use in most locations fell post-pandemic. So that's not a particularly surprising story, because cycle use across the borough and indeed across London peaked massively during the pandemic. And so we've seen those numbers fall away across most of London and now stabilise. But I can't tell you the reason why we haven't got those exact numbers in the report.
Thank you very much. Would you like to return to your seat? And we come to Mariana Golding.
Thank you. Marina Golding from Manor Drive. For the King Charles Road modal traffic filter removal of. The modal filter or barrier in King Charles Road was installed as early as September 2020 and has remained in place since without proper consultation with residents, despite fierce opposition in the form of neighbourhood meetings with councillors and a petition to remove it from the majority of residents in Berrylands. Planning permission for a 420-place Surbiton Primary Academy on this site was, however, granted in February 2022. Your highway report claims the school is to open in September 2025. I have since been informed by a local councillor that although the Department of Education has given a start date of September 2026, this has again been delayed, with no new date set given. Therefore, the earliest this mythical school will be built is September 2028, and the barrier will have been in place in excess of 8 years. Yet Surbiton Primary Academy features prominently in your highways report recently published and appears to be a driver towards a decision to maintain the barrier. A recent government review has placed doubt on 44 new planned schools. Omnia Learning Trust, selected to run the proposed school, believes that Surbiton Primary's future is unclear. If this project which would take over a year, does go ahead, with the barrier still in place, construction vehicles on Hollyfield Road and Alexandra Drive will cause unimaginable disruption, and this will be followed on completion of the project by inevitable additional traffic going to the school. Despite the council's efforts to encourage active travel, children will continue to be driven to school. Lifestyles dictate that. 2036, local angry Berrylands residents signed this petition for the removal of the barrier in King Charles Road before any disruption of a school is taking place. And road conditions are hazardous now, but will be even worse. But if the school is built next to the King Charles Road, which is closed off to traffic. My question is, please would the council give an update on the true status of the school project, including confirmation of whether or not it is to be built?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Nadelli, have you got the latest on the school, or I know it's not your portfolio, but yeah, go ahead.
There's a lot that isn't my portfolio. I'd also like some clarity on what Marina was saying. She says here it's the majority of Berrylands. Well, Berrylands has a population of 13,500, but as far as I was aware, only 2,000 signed the petition. So it's not quite the majority. So swiftly moving on from that point.
Can I add to that?
No, hang on. If you just, so she can answer the proper thing, please, and then you can have a supplementary, no problem.
The installation of the modal filter in King Charles Road had been aligned with the proposal to build a school on the corner of this road and Hollyfield Road for a number of years. The planning permission for the 420-place Surbiton Primary Academy on this site was granted in February 2022. Oh, hold on, that's yours. Sorry, got myself in a state here. Not my portfolio. King Charles Road modal filter was installed under an experimental traffic order in September 2020 and was made permanent during the duly considered the views of the community in July 2021 at Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee. The current status of the school project, I can confirm that the planning permission for the Surbiton Primary Academy was indeed granted in February 22. The current projected opening date from the Department of Education is September 26. The Surbiton Primary Academy has been identified as one of 44 free schools proposal nationally that are going to be subject to further review by the Department of Education. Achieving for Children, on behalf of RBK, will be liaising with the Department of Education between now and the end of the year to provide any requested information. A decision will then be made by the Department of Education as to whether to continue with the new school. I believe we hope to know more by the end of the year, but I might need to have that confirmed by officers. That's a small fact. It's a presumption on my part. Until a decision is made, we continue to assess local needs for primary places in that area to make sure that any possible opening date links to the predicted need in the area and the date we would want the school to open. However, we acknowledge the reports indicating that this date might be delayed even further. I can assure you that the Council will follow the Department of Education to confirm the project's timeline and whether any further planning permissions will be required due to that delay. The Council also recognises the concerns regarding the construction traffic and the subsequent school-related traffic. Should construction move forward, we will work closely with the contractors to manage traffic flow and reduce disruption on Hollyfield Road and Alexander Drive. And regarding the emergency accesses, we have had a recent confirmation from all three emergency services that there are no significant issues with the operation of the modal filter. The Met Police, however, have expressed a preference for an ANPR camera-based solution.
We have exactly 1 minute. 1 minute for, are you still going? You're done. Supplementary, 1 minute.
This isn't a question, it's a bit of a correction. 2,036 signatures against the barrier, 774.
Thank you very
Just
much.
for your
Take your
record.
seat, we've finished. Right. I think that. Liz Mitchell, would you like to come forward? You've.
Good evening, councillors. Nearly 3 years ago, RBK decided to half implement an LTN called the Tolworth Road LTN. It was a disaster for both Tolworth Road and Thornhill Road, as it was never fully implemented. Councillors did not adhere to the Lib Dem manifesto. Councillors failed to take the expert advice of the highways teams and other specialists. And to be honest, they were weak and caved into a very loud and noisy group of NIMBYs. However, what it was very, very successful at achieving was creating divisions within the neighbourhood. I note that again tonight, we are seeing divisions in the community because of RBK actions. My question is this council's policy to cause divisions and ill feelings in our community by choosing to focus on single point solutions instead of addressing the broader issue?
Thank you very much. Councillor Nardelli.
With all due respect, it is clearly not, which is why we are all here, sitting here this evening. Schemes that are being implemented, some of which are considered single point solutions, are founded on the wider policy objectives set out in our local plan and the local implementation plan and the Mayor of London's transport strategy and availability of that funding. I'd like to add to you as well, Liz, that I will, over the next few days or the next few weeks, most definitely, hopefully the next few days, come and meet you on the other issue that you've got in your own neighbourhood. But I would like now, in front of all these people, to announce to you that I will be down to see you, let's say within the next 10 days.
Thank you, Councillor Nardelli.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Sure. The King Charles Road filter is a single point solution which has benefits for many in the community, but like Tolworth Road LTN is causing divisions in the community. Will councillors listen to residents and hold RBK to account to build on the success of the King Charles Road filter to develop solutions that further enhance the area for all residents?
Thank you.
Reflecting back on the answer earlier, with our implementation plans, the local plan, the Mayor of London's transport strategy, with Berryland's safer roads, we will be working very closely with all of our neighbourhoods to work out better structure for their roads, for safer neighbours and safer roads throughout the borough. So yes, we will be working to improve the outcomes and the health of all our residents.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to return to your seat. And that ends the 30 minutes public questions. And so we're moving back onto the agenda here. And the first item is, oh yes, the questions not dealt with will receive a written response. So do not worry. You will say, you've had your 30 minutes. That's it. We're moving on to the next part of the agenda. The next, no, please sit down. Please, can you sit down? I have no power to extend the 30 minutes. You heard that at the beginning. It's not in the Constitution. Please sit down. We're moving on to the next part, which is item 2, which is petitions. Now, that doesn't mean the petitions we're discussing. There's new petitions. We haven't received any new petitions. So, moving on to the next part is apologies for absence, attendance of substitute members. Herman, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence received from Councillor Anne Owen. Councillor Ollie Waring is her substitute.
Now we move on to declarations of interests. Members are invited to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or other registrable interests or non-registrable interests relevant to items on this agenda. Do any members have an interest they wish to declare? Yes, Councillor Manders.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I live in Rayburn Avenue, and that's one of the roads which are mentioned in the petition report later.
Thank you. Councillor Holt.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to disclose a personal interest. I live on Yule Road, which is near to what we're discussing in the item 6. I also represent Surbiton Hill Ward, as I've already mentioned, but I will keep an open mind. But I just wanted, in the spirit of transparency, to let everyone know the personal interest.
Thank you. And I will also declare an interest that I live at the top of your road. So, thank you. The next bit, minutes. Do members agree to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of September 2024 as a correct record? Okay, that's fine. Now, we're moving on to the item 6, petitions on the King Charles Road modal traffic filter. Now, agenda is that petitions on the King Charles Road modal filter travel. Members of the committee may refer to Appendix A in the agenda pack, as explained in the replies to the public questions. The reason for this item being considered by this committee has been provided in the report, in particular the policy background and in the key points and the constitutional context in paragraph 5. I would like to briefly outline the arrangements for this item so all of us can clearly on the same page, so we all know what's going to be happening. So I'm going to first invite the relevant portfolio holder, which is Councillor Nadelli, who's doing overtime tonight, and officers to introduce the report. I will then invite public comments. I've exercised my discretion under Procedural Rule 17 open brackets C, close brackets, to organise the comments to ensure that the two groups of petitioners have similar time to express their views. While the two petition organisers have already exercised their rights under the petition scheme to speak in November 2023, they will still be invited to address the committee each for up to 5 minutes. The organiser for the petition for retaining the modal filter will speak for 5 minutes, followed by 10 minutes to be shared by other members of the public who wish to speak in the same petition. So they'll be coming up, organiser, and then the other ones come and sit in the chairs, and we just move the microphone around. So you might not get your photo on the picture on the live feed, but your voice should be heard, so you'll be okay. Subject to the committee's agreement in accordance, then the organiser of the petition for removing the modal filter will speak for 5 minutes, followed by 10 minutes to be shared by other members of the public who wish to speak on the same petition. And again, they'll also be moving the microphone around. Then, subject to the committee's agreement in accordance with Procedural Rule 27, I will then invite comments by councillors who are not a member of the committee. I will allow 2 minutes for each councillor, and I will seek the committee's agreement when we arrive at that point. I will then move the motion for debate. After the commencement of the debate, according to public Procedural Rule 17, open brackets B, close brackets, open brackets 1, close brackets, there should be no further public comment. In other words, when you get to that point, it's just these people speaking, okay? That's what we're going for. Right. So, we have in attendance tonight Matthew Hill, as he's mentioned before, Assistant Director of Highways, Transport and Regulatory Services. And we'll start off with, can Councillor Nardelli and the officers introduce the report?
I haven't spoken enough this evening. The purpose of the report is to provide feedback to the Committee on Traffic Surveys, Air Quality Assessment and the potential impacts in response to the petition from residents. Sorry. Did you all hear? Yep. Petition from residents in relation to King Charles Road modal traffic filter. And I'm going to let Mr. Hill do the rest because frankly I need a break.
Thank you, Councillor. For the benefit of members, so the recommendation is that the committee is asked to resolve that, being consistent with borough-wide policy, the King Charles Road modal filter be retained. The report sets out some of the key history, demonstrates why it's in line with council policy, and also has a plethora of data to back that up as well. Just very briefly on the sort of history, as I think one of the questioners has already alluded to, in any case, the barrier was originally implemented in September 2020 as an experimental feature. It was duly considered by Surbiton Neighbourhood in summer 21 and made permanent in late 2021. It is in line with council policy to improve the conditions of our streets for pedestrians and cyclists, and more generally for residents to make streets healthier. And therefore, that's the reason for the recommendation. And I shall probably leave it there because there's plenty of opportunity for further questioning.
Thank you. Now, I will now invite members of the public for their comments. No questions are allowed as advance notice must be given. Now, starting off with, this is our 5 minutes followed by 10 minutes. We're at that point and we're having the people who want the modal filter retained. So I've got Dr. Elizabeth McGill coming forward. And it's the same thing. Press the red button when you want to speak. And you've got 5 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I'm here to present the petition to retain the low traffic neighborhood on King Charles Road. I'm a Berrylands resident, but I speak on behalf of residents across Berrylands, Alexandra, Surbiton Hill, and Tolworth wards, and wider, who benefit from the modal filter. I'm going to explain why, from a policy, safety, and health perspective, we need to maintain the filter. First, I want to point out that any petition is self-selecting and not a referendum. Many of those who are less likely to engage in petitions are the ones who will suffer most from any removal of the filter, the young and the less well-off. This is the silent majority. The council was elected by residents on the basis of the policies that it is now enacting. If people are unhappy with policies, the time to change them is at an election. Kingston's vision is to be greener, fairer, and safer. Low traffic neighborhoods are working towards this vision. The council plan, which was developed with significant input from residents, explicitly commits to introducing them and other traffic reducing measures. The council declared a climate emergency and has committed to taking bold action to reduce dependency on cars. By this key measure, the low traffic neighborhood in King Charles Road has been a clear success. There are fewer cars across the entire local area. The council has also committed—
Silence, let the lady speak. Silence.
The council has also committed to reducing inequalities, especially for children. The modal filter has supported these goals by vastly improving the local environment. Children can now safely use their space for outdoor activities. The council has pledged to make our environment safer by prioritizing the needs of children, pedestrians, older people, and cyclists over cars. In an area with a high density of vulnerable road users, the modal filter is protecting residents, particularly children. This will become even more important if Surbiton Primary Academy opens immediately adjacent to the filter. Before I describe the positive impacts of the low traffic neighborhood, you should appreciate its unique location. The modal filter is next to many community assets. There's a popular playground. There's Alexandra Park, which has tennis, cricket, football, basketball, croquet, and a very popular junior park run. There's fish ponds, which has incredible biodiversity. There's a bustling local cafe, and there's a likely future primary school. Thousands of people across 4 wards and wider travel by foot and bike to use these amenities daily, and these numbers are only going to continue to grow. The benefits of the low traffic neighborhood have been remarkable. Previously, King Charles Road was notorious for dangerous driving. There were collisions, injuries, property damage, and countless near misses, something that doesn't appear in any data set. Ask residents what it was like to cross the road before the modal filter. You'll be told it was a suicide mission or like taking your life into your own hands. Who here would accept conditions like that for their family? Because I certainly do not. The Highways report shows that there has been an absolute reduction in the number of cars across the entire local area since the low traffic neighborhood was introduced. The modal filter has led to this reduction, and this is council policy working. The safety of the local area has also vastly improved by removing so many cars from the road. Now, large numbers of cyclists and pedestrians are using the area. Dog walkers are safely accessing the park. The data from the Highways report shows a significant increase in children walking to school. So children are developing habits around active travel that they will carry into adulthood. This is what promoting safety looks like. This is the council policy working. The monitoring shows beneficial impacts on air quality around the modal filter. No matter the scale, these benefits are in the precise location where thousands of people of all ages engage in physical activity. They are all benefiting from cleaner air. This is greening in action. This is the council policy working. Some might suggest that the low traffic neighborhood benefits only a few households on King Charles Road, and this is simply not the case. That argument ignores the unique location of the modal filter. By reducing traffic on King Charles Road, children and residents from at least 4 wards, thank you, are benefiting from a safer road. Many of those, particularly from Surbiton Hill and Tolworth wards, are relatively more deprived and lack access to private outdoor space. This is promoting fairness. This is the council policy working. I know Berrylands residents have concerns about traffic displacement. So to address these concerns, continue with the council policy of introducing low traffic neighborhoods and reducing car dependency. Where there have been small increases in traffic on certain roads in Berrylands, prioritize those roads for intervention. We thank the council for
30 seconds.
Yeah, the low traffic neighborhood. It's seen clear successes. There are fewer cars in a residential area, there are more pedestrian cyclists, and children are safer and thriving in an environment that supports them. This council has promised us decisive action to make us greener, fairer, and safer. So be decisive. Maintain the filter because it's council policy, because it's better for safety, and because it improves health for all residents. Thank you.
Oh, that's it. Oh, excellent. Excellent. You've organised yourself, so you're going to be doing the microphone shuffle. Excellent. Thanks. Right. How many are you ready? Get set. Go.
Hello. I've lived in the area with my family for over 20 years on King Charles Road. I'm going to tell you from personal experience what hasn't worked before and why the modal filter is the only thing that does work. King Charles Road is a high-use space with a playground, 2 parks, sports club, a future school, 2 places of worship, and 2 thriving cafes. It's what makes this local area so vibrant and gives us a strong sense of community connection. But King Charles Road is not designed for heavy traffic. It is a designated bike route. It is a narrow residential road with well over 1,000 people who call it home, including hundreds of children who use the road to walk or to cycle to school. Before the modal filter, King Charles Road and the surrounding narrow streets were incredibly unsafe, with high volumes of traffic during rush hours and speeding vehicles the rest of the time. My neighbours and I have witnessed upturned vans and collisions between cars, motorbikes, cyclists and pedestrians. Drivers have actually smashed into my neighbour's front wall. Myself and my children have witnessed horrible road rage outside our house whilst on the way to school. The council have attempted multiple unsuccessful interventions: chicanes, a speed indicator board, speed cushions, and zebra crossings. Only the modal filter has addressed the council's goals of reducing volumes and therefore improving safety. It was only when the modal was installed that I stopped driving my teenage son to school and happily allowed him to cycle safely to school. If the modal filter were taken out, it could literally prove fatal, especially once the new primary school is built and young children will be walking to school. The council has a clear policy to reduce the number of cars on the road. The King Charles Road modal filter has done just that. I urge councillors to vote to keep the modal filter in place and build on this success by exploring traffic reducing measures across the rest of our local area.
Good evening. My name is Mark Nelligan and I'm a resident of Broomfield Road. As a family man with 3 young children and a dog, Alexandra Park and the fish ponds are a focal point of our lives, as they are for many people in our community. It was the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent lockdowns that made me realise how important open space is to our community. To this end, I would actually like to congratulate this council on the efforts, financial investment and initiatives, including the modal filter, which has served to improve our open spaces and create spaces to promote physical health and mental well-being. We have quality open spaces where people can exercise. Alexandra Park is full of daily joggers, walkers and users of the outdoor gym and is the venue for Surbiton Junior Park Run every Sunday. We're places to play sport with municipal football pitches, basketball courts, cricket pitches and tennis courts available to the public, and just spaces to enjoy the nature and tranquility of fish ponds and the Millennium Green Trust, or for me, simply to watch my children grow and develop in the playground in Alexandra Park. All of this, due to the implementation and retention of the traffic filter, is happening with reduced cars in and around our open spaces, which has resulted in a cleaner air environment, less noise, and a safer environment where people, in particular children, can move freely and safely in and around King Charles Road to access our open spaces. I'm a strong advocate for retaining the traffic filter, given the positive benefit it provides to so many members of this community, specifically in relation to our open space. And I hope this filter remains in place to safeguard these open spaces now and for the years to come, for others to enjoy, as I and my family currently do. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. My name's Penny Fox. I've lived in the area for just over 16 years now. And look, when the modal filter was first introduced, I'll admit that I was among those who was very sceptical. I live in a road north of the filter that's an obvious cut through, and I was worried. I am so happy to say that I was totally wrong. I've got two children who attend local schools who are old enough to remember what it was like before the filter. How dangerous it was, the speeding, the zebra crossing that was essentially optional. It was totally unsafe. The filter has delivered really clear safety improvements that mean parents like me can allow our children to walk and cycle to school, to have safer access to the brilliant local facilities, and for staying active. These discussions tend to focus, and the petitions tend to focus on one or two wards, but the catchment area of the playground, the recreation ground, alongside the green space at fish ponds stretches so far further than that, which means that the impact of the filter does too. You can see this in the numbers from across the borough who signed our petition, that these places are valued really widely, and the safety the filter creates makes the spaces safer and more accessible to residents from right across the borough. I live in Surbiton Hill. It doesn't tend to get the focus in a lot of the conversations that have been had around the filter. It's an area of higher density housing and, based on council statistics, significantly higher relative deprivation. There are many households near where I live for whom that also means being deprived of much or any outdoor space at home. Our green spaces are a lifeline for many, and the council's commitment to facilitating more active travel through increasing the area covered by school streets, by LTNs and other measures in the council plan has the power to be really transformative for those families. I urge the committee to stay the course they set out in the plan and retain the filter.
Hi, good evening. My name's Adam, and I've lived in the area for over 8 years now, initially in Surbiton Hill Ward, and then moving earlier this year to Berrylands. My husband and I are about to become parents in less than 2 weeks now. We're surrounded by amazing facilities, parks, nurseries, schools, libraries, churches, and that list goes on. And a big factor for us in moving to the area was the council's commitment to reduce the dependency on cars, to create a clean and safe community where we could take advantage of all the local area has to offer on foot. As our child grows up, we want them to be able to enjoy using the parks and playground in clean, unpolluted air. We're also excited about the new school, which will hopefully open in the next few years, and we look forward to them being able to walk safely to school along King Charles Road. Even without the new school, it's really great to see the number of children walking along and crossing that road on a daily basis as they're making their way to and from the various primary and secondary schools we have close by. The barrier has greatly improved the safety of the road for pedestrians by significantly reducing traffic volumes along the road, and I'd have serious safety concerns for children in particular using this route to walk to school were it to be removed. I also want to briefly remark on the two petitions that we're reviewing this evening. Of course, it's important that all concerns raised by both sets of petition signatories are well considered by the council. However, these petitions, or indeed the attendance tonight, should not be viewed as a referendum. The relative sizes of the two petitions needs to be seen in light of the fact people are less likely to campaign for something that's already in place, and particularly something they had already considered permanent. Unfortunately, we're also not aware that there was a hard copy petition for the removal of the barrier, otherwise we would have also prepared and submitted one.
We ask the councillors to be mindful of this when making a decision and leverage all the data points available to them, including the highway team's recommendation to keep the modal filter.
Good evening. My name's Rob Airbrook. I'm a local resident who enjoys walking our dog through the modal filter very regularly and enjoying the environmental improvements there've been. But I'm also the chair of the Friends for Fishponds Park. We have a membership of around about 150. We also have a management committee that's 8 strong. That management committee considered the issue of the modal filter and came to a unanimous conclusion that we wanted to see it retained. The Fish Ponds is a very, very popular park for local families. We had about 100 people come to a recent bat walk. The park immediately adjoins the area where the modal filter is, and so a lot of users make use of it to get to and from Alexandra Park as well. Now, an additional environmental factor that hasn't been mentioned to date is the water quality in the stream that runs underneath the road at that point. And I'm reliably informed that various tests have been taken of the water and of the wildlife within it, which have shown significant benefits to the quality of that water as a result of the removal of the traffic going through the modal filter. And that water goes on to flow right the way through Barrowlands Nature Reserve. So that's an important improvement as well. Finally, I would just like to say that while we can see the improvements that have been locally from the modal filter, there's also, I think, enormous potential for that particular traffic-free area that's been created. And I can see it becoming a real community hub for families, situated as it is between the playground, the future school, and the 2 parks. So I would really urge the councillors to actually look to what could be achieved there in terms of having a fantastic sort of Barrowlands piazza as a community hub for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Yeah. Thank you for keeping to time. That's great. Now, we've got the next group coming forward. Herman's just moving the microphone back. So we've got Mr. Graham Hare's coming to come forward, and we've got his supporters going to be ready for doing that same, coming up as a group. So if you'd like to take a seat and press the red button, you've got 5 minutes. You ready? Okay, get set. Well, no, okay, you got it. You worked out where the button is. Which one are you going to be pressing?
That one?
Yeah, that's it. Okay, get set, go.
Good evening. At the outset, I should like to make it very clear that my group is not against LCNs nor cyclists, and we fully support appropriate measures to improve our environment. We do, however, believe that the KCR barrier was a poorly conceived and unnecessary measure. The Highways report clearly states that many residential roads in Barrowlands are now experiencing much higher traffic volumes as a result of displacement. This is the opposite of the Healthy Streets policy. The petition to remove the barrier on King Charles Road was signed by over 2,000 residents, 90% of whom live within the effective wards of Barrowlands and Alexandra. A 2018 survey conducted by the council noticed the importance of this alternative route in the event of blockages on Yule Road. And as we know, blockages and delays are a fact of life, caused by regular roadworks of various kinds, and the fact that the cycle lanes prevent buses from pulling in so cars may pass. The Highways report states that the barrier sets out to reduce or remove through traffic from residential roads to make it safer and easier for people to walk and cycle locally. In addition, the map provided in the report shows that the entire Barrowlands area was intended to benefit from the introduction of this barrier. Now, there's a lot in that Highways report, so let me unpack that for you. The report crumpets that traffic has been significantly reduced on KCR to the south of the barrier. It does not, however, mention that this stretch of road is just 500 metres long, and it does not say that the 3 roads leading from this 500 metres have only 250 households. Since no through traffic is possible any longer in this small area, it's obvious that the traffic will now be very low. By contrast, traffic has increased on other roads, for example, Hollyfield Road, Alexandra, Barrowlands, Pine Walk, Manor Drive, Elgar Avenue, and particularly the southern part of Raven Avenue. This totals around 4.5 kilometres. Survey after survey has been conducted in a vain effort to find favourable data. There are many pages concerning the 2023 survey, but here's the headline. Over 3,000 vehicles entered the Berrylands area and left it within 15 minutes over the 12 hours surveyed. This is defined as cut-through data in the survey, cut-through traffic in the survey, and a very significant proportion is due to the KCR barrier, as can be seen from the traffic patterns. The January 2024 survey results have been ignored in the report as being influenced by the ongoing works at Tolworth Roundabout. But to give you an idea, there was a midweek peak of over 8,000 vehicles on Rayburn in a single day. The June 2024 survey was deliberately taken in ideal conditions, seizing that rare moment without roadworks on your road. But roadworks of various kinds are, however, a constant fact of life on your road, and so these figures will obviously be lower than average. The June figures nevertheless still show increased traffic on many kilometres of our residential roads, and the report agrees that this is likely to be due to traffic displacement due to the modal filter. The barrier has not benefited the wider area at all. In fact, it has achieved the opposite. As an experiment that was presumably intended to keep traffic on the main Ewell Road, this is demonstrably a failure. The reasonable topic of child safety in Alexandra Park has been raised by supporters of the barrier, but the tracks drawn from the Department of Transport data paint a rather different picture. The data shows that on average, there have been just 2 incidents a year along King Charles Road, and this frequency has not changed since the installation of the barrier. And over the last 10 years, there has in fact been only 1 incident on KCR involving a child, this taking place in 2022, after the barrier was installed. The supporters of the barrier have cited pollution as a factor, but the Highways report, in fact, dismisses this as a concern in Berrylands, King Charles Road included, stating that all measurements, both current and historic, were comfortably within legal limits. The report also clearly states that the introduction of the barrier has had either a slight or negligible effect on pollution across Berrylands, King Charles Road included. Removing the barrier would therefore have the same effect. The support, in conclusion, the information contained in the Highways report does not in any way support keeping the barrier in place. On the contrary, it shows that it had achieved result opposite from the Healthy Street Scheme intention to reduce traffic across Berrylands as a whole. It is utterly inconceivable that this should be considered acceptable to this committee. It is reasonable to try new measures, but it is not acceptable to persist with such measures when evidence shows they have failed and when they do not have the support of residents. The proposal to retain the barrier does not, therefore, make sense. I now strongly request that members of this council consider the actual facts of the matters relating specifically to the barrier and its impact. It will take courage and integrity to admit that this has not worked. Please do not hide behind your fellow councillors. Look at yourselves in the mirror and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the other speakers, would you like to come forward all as a group? Because we want to see if we've got enough chairs for you. Are we there? Everyone got themselves sorted. You're ready for the microphone shuffle. Okay. On your marks. Oh, hang on, it wasn't Rush Herman. On your marks, get set, go.
Hi, I'm Peter Kent and I've lived in Berrylands for over 30 years. The council's report makes non-specific generic statements not based on evidence. The report does confirm that nearly 1,800 residents from Alexandra and Berrylands ward consider that the barrier has not made their environment more attractive or encourages walking and cycling. Exactly how the barrier is supposed to do these things has never been disclosed. The general aims to improve the environment are laudable. However, the objections to the barrier are specific to it and the damage it has caused to the wider Berrylands environment. General references to LTNs are irrelevant. There is no LTN, simply a barrier on a road that TfL had identified as a potential LTN boundary road. The barrier increases traffic for the vastly bigger area to the north and east of the 400-metre stretch of road where traffic has been reduced. The barrier does not reduce car usage. Drivers simply take alternative routes, increasing kilometres driven, fuel used with associated emissions. Some simple arithmetic shows that over a 12-month period, the total displaced traffic will cause the waste of tens of thousands of litres of fuel. People in Berrylands will continue to need their vehicles, whether elderly or disabled, or as a result of Berrylands having the worst levels of access to public transport. No policy justifies continuing traffic displacement and its effects. The barrier is irrelevant to broader initiatives to change motor vehicle usage patterns, but is significant in damaging the wider Berrylands area. Massaging selected short-term sample data to disguise the lack of evidence of increased traffic compounds the lack of evidence of benefits. The Council's own data shows cycling through the barrier reduced by over 15% year on year from 2021 to 22, information omitted from the report. The barrier has caused traffic displacement and there is no evidence of benefits for the overwhelming majority. I and my fellow petitioners would like the barrier removed.
Yes. There are 8 primary schools in a 1-mile radius of each other in Surbiton. A number of these schools is undersubscribed, suggesting that the area is well provided for schools. No barrier or modal filter has been erected anywhere near any of those schools, although they are in the vicinity of very busy roads. Unlike King Charles Road, there are no pedestrian crossings or barriers to protect any of the children who are walking in those roads. And in places like Manor Drive and Alexandra Drive, there are issues where children are trying to go to school and the roads are very busy, the roads are packed. There is no new school and there are no children walking around trying to get to the school in Hollyfield Road. There is no justification for retaining this barrier for such a speculative and uncertain proposal with no obvious timeline. This is merely a smokescreen for retaining the barrier. In the words of a local policeman, I wish you would get rid of this blooming barrier. Please get rid of this barrier.
Hello, I'm Anne Thompson and I live at Moresby Avenue. Okay, since the pandemic, working from home has increased, resulting in a general reduction of weekly traffic. This downward trend is in line with the June 24 survey results at the King Charles Road Bridge that showed a similar reduction when compared to the pre-scheme figures. However, no downward trend in Berrylands. The June 24 survey results show traffic volume figures for the main Berrylands residential roads have increased when compared to the pre-scheme figures. This is due, of course, to the displacement of traffic in the area as a result of the barrier going up. Our roads are just no longer safe for adults nor children, and the increased traffic negatively affects thousands of families in Berrylands on a daily basis. Quite frankly, without the working from home trend, the Berrylands traffic would be even worse than the intolerable high levels you have imposed on us today. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sandra Hillman and I'm in Norton Avenue. I refer to the report which quotes the Healthy Streets policy and provides what are considered low, medium and high traffic road definitions. From the June 2024 survey data, it states Hollyfield Road, Alexander Drive and Pine Walk as low Rayburn Avenue as medium, and all deemed reasonable in residential roads. This is a calculation based on the traffic volumes. This report states that if the barrier was taken away, 2,927 cars would return to the southern 500 metres part of King Charles Road. If you apply the same grading method to that part of KCR as the other roads mentioned above, i.e. volume of cars per hour over the same period of time, then KCR would also be designated a low traffic according to the Healthy Streets criteria. Why again does King Charles Road receive special treatment where it is cited as a low traffic road? Is it fair to have a utopia of 250 houses ignoring 5,000 houses which are now severely affected by increased traffic, pollution and safety issues?
Good evening, my name is Chris Thompson, angry runner, cyclist, grandfather. We live in the more dystopian end of Berrylands. Unfortunately, we don't live in the Valhalla, that's St. Charles, King Charlesville Avenue, so I know where I'm booking my holiday next year. Anyway, over 2,000 signatures in a public petition is a record number for Kingston Council, apparently. It's also the number of seats in the London Palladium. Nobody at our end of Berrylands is cheering or applauding the blight that is the King Charles Barrier that has ruined the lives of thousands of families in our neighbourhood. Stand at the bus stop waiting for the late running K2 and listen to the despair of young mums and elderly folks bewildered at the endless parade of more speeding cars. Ditto the checkouts at Sainsbury's and Marks and Spencer's, the counter at Batterfried, the prescription counter at Pearcare Pharmacy, the chatter in the Triangle, the post office with its honest, hard-working post mistress and master. Talk to drivers picking up their cars at Berrylands Autos, long-term members of our community who now seek moves away. My own 4-year-old granddaughter who no longer wants to play or walk our streets on a scooter because, granddad, of the noisy, horrible traffic. As a cyclist, I no longer deem it safe to ride through our crowded streets, full of angry, exasperated, warring, frustrated drivers. The message from the doorsteps has been clear. We will cancel the council next time at the polls. To the Lib Dems, from the live stand, you can pull that 4-foot post up and free us all.
Good evening, councillors. Majid Mafi. I live in the south of Rayburn Avenue, which has now been turned to a hell for residents there. Councillors, I said this a long time ago. We have been waiting for this for 4 years. You have divided the communities. You have created the winners and losers. Of course, for a small minority, you have turned a public road, paid and maintained by public, into a private road. Desirable road, no traffic, no noise, no pollution. Of course, they are going to want to protect that. We heard tonight with all the people who want to keep the barrier, they made so many claims, but none of them being backed by verified evidence. Now, for example,
1 minute.
It's always the case when it comes to me. I've waited 4 years and I would like to say what I got to say. When it comes to safety councillors, they claim, the supporters for a barrier, they have cited child safety near Alexandra Park as a main reason to maintain the barrier. But the Department of Transport data clearly shows that this has never been the issue. In fact, over the past 10 years, there has only been a one child-related incident, and that was in 2022.
30 seconds.
And the barrier was in 2022, after the barrier was installed and not before. So that's the wrong reason. The other thing talking about is the pollution. Supporters of the barriers have cited pollution justification for keeping the barrier. However, the council's own highways report dismisses this concern, stating that all pollution measurements, both current and historical, remain comfortably within legal limits. The report.
Time up.
Only got.
I've got to be fair to both sides.
Taking a time for the other group, they spoke nearly 50. I was timing that.
Yeah,
all right, thank you very much.
Herman's Watch, I run by. I've kept an eye on it. It's got to be fair. Now we're moving to the councillor section, which is other councillors not on the committee. So this is for the committee to decide whether or not they can speak. So councillors Peter Hurlinger and Jackie Davis are present for this item. They have requested to speak on this item under Procedure Rule 27. I'm suggesting 2 minutes each. Can we agree to allow them to speak on this agenda item? You've agreed. Agreed. Sorry. Sorry, Councillor George, are you agreeing or? Yes, of course.
So apparently my slide's not working, so I'll have to be shown as James when I'm speaking. I've got no problem with local ward councillors speaking. If they are to speak, though, I would like them to say why they are happy for it to come to this committee rather than the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee, where more people could have a say and a proper discussion could have been had before it came to this committee. If they're not going to say that, then I don't want to hear from them, quite frankly, because they don't deserve to speak.
I don't think I can. I think the power is not conditional, and that what I'm asking people is not a conditional. I'll let you speak only if you say what Councillor George wants you to say. It's basically, are we letting them speak? Yes. Okay, we're letting them speak. All right. So we're going to come forward. We've got Peter, come forward. You've got 2 minutes, and you'll get a 30-second warning from Herman when it's 30 seconds before the end. You ready? Go.
The modal filter is in the northwest part of my ward. My binaural door knocking, including during the 2 elections this year, has indicated that those living near King Charles Road are generally very happy to have less traffic, yet those living further away more hanker after the convenience of having slightly shorter journeys, which was the case before the modal filter came in. If the road had been called King Solomon rather than King Charles, I might have been tempted to suggest half-jokingly the compromise idea of keeping half the barrier, but the road is not so called, and anyway, that's a compromise that would please no one. My judgment, which is after all the greatest duty a public representative has to their constituents, is to prioritise safety. In the 1960s, transport policy put safety before convenience, introducing top motorway speed limits, seat belts, and restrictions on drink consumption. At the time, many questioned the proposed limitations, but 60 years later, these safety provisions are seen by most as useful givens. The key points, section 2 in the written report, makes for me the strongest arguments. Later on, points 50 to 53 concern the proposed new school. It's inconceivable that some form of school street scheme would not be in place to accompany its opening. Removing the barrier now, only to impose some form of restraint later on, seems to me ridiculous. It reminds me of a jibe made about Prime Minister Harold Wilson in the 1960s. Wilson shows a lack of foresight that would have travelled Ethelred the Unready. In a borough
30 seconds.
That is proud of its links to Anglo-Saxon kings, I feel it would be sensible for councillors to have the foresight at this time to stick with what is.
Thank you. Now, Jackie Davis, take this seat and we'll get yourself comfortable. Are you ready?
Yep, ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go.
Thank you. I would like to speak in support of the traffic officer's report. I do have a lot of sympathy for people who feel their traffic has been displaced to their roads. However, I lived in Raeburn Avenue for 11 years. The Tolworth end was always difficult, always congested. Most of the traffic going up the road would follow me up the road in my car, peel off, and many cars would leave to go to Pine Walk as a cut through to Surbiton Hill, Surbiton and Kingston. The problem in most of these roads has got worse because of parked cars. Many grown-up children are still living with parents, and there seems to be an expectation that everyone should own a car. 1 car per person is just not sustainable, with some families using the road to store 3 or 4 motor vehicles. Many people living in the flats in King Charles Road do not own cars, And so why should they have to tolerate the bumper-to-bumper traffic jams, noise pollution and road rage outside their front doors as they had before the barrier was installed? A byproduct of the filter has been to make a lovely, quiet area opposite the park. It may not have been the original
Please be quiet. We've
intention-
listened in silence to you. Listen in silence.
Thank you. It may not have been the original intention of the filter, but what's wrong with a lovely byproduct? Now, the main point I want to come to is the Berrylands Healthy Street Report, which is due to come to the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee in December. This seeks to alleviate any stresses caused by through traffic and parking. It is being written with the expectation that the filter will remain in place. The barrier is just a first step on the way to a quieter neighbourhood. I urge you to stick to your election pledge to make Kingston greener and safer. The barrier certainly makes it fairer too. We must make it safer and easier for people who wish to travel sustainably, while also freeing up road space for those who can't. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your contributions, and thank you very much for all the emails you have sent us. We've had plenty sent us. We've had a lot of response on this, a lot of views. Now I'm moving to the debate. That means the public side of it is over, and hopefully we now have the elected members debating it. So I've got this. I now move from the chair the recommendation at the front of the report of page A1. Now this is critical. We get this, what we're actually asked to vote on, what we're asked to consider. The committee is asked to resolve that being consistent with the borough-wide policy. You've got to decide, is this consistent with the borough-wide policy or not? The King's Charter, no, I have just said the public section part is over. Can you please listen in silence? You have had your opportunity. We have all listened to you in silence. We expect the same courtesy. So what it's about is whether or not the policy with the King Charles modal filter fits the policy. So the King Charles Road modal filter be retained as shown in Annex 1 of this report. Will Councillor Nardelli second the motion? Thank you. Now, would members of the committee who wish to speak, please raise your hand so I can get a list. Right. I've got 5 speakers here. I think so 5 so far have put their hands up. So if we start with Councillor Manders, would you like to start? And then we'll work round the group.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As I mentioned earlier, I live in Raeburn Avenue, one of the roads featured in the report and mentioned by several people tonight. And I'm also one of the 2 councillors for Alexandra Ward, where the actual King Charles Road modal filter is actually cited. We've heard much from various angles in the questions and speeches tonight, and also into the emails sent to us. And can I thank the local residents who have sent emails to us and the information that they provided. It's much appreciated. But I do not plan to go through every point that we've heard tonight, piece by piece. So I'm just going to give you, Chair, a summary of my views as a ward councillor and also as a resident who lives in the area. I was elected in 2022, and so I wasn't party to the decision of the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee to make the modal filter permanent. So I've done my own research on the issues. I have talked to residents about the matter, and I've also read the officers' reports. I've also looked at the data, and I've looked at the relevant policies of the council. These are my conclusions. Most motor traffic, according to the statistics in the Berrylands area, is local traffic. that is, people who live or work there. However, there was a road which was a notorious rat run for drivers from outside the area. Drivers coming from the A3 going north knew that they could avoid several sets of traffic lights on the Yore Road if they took this road. Over 2,300 motor vehicles took this route daily. It was becoming increasingly intolerable to the residents. Collisions occurred, according to the residents. Drivers spoke the speed limit despite some traffic calming. Crossing the relatively narrow road became difficult in rush hours. We've heard from local residents about these serious issues. Of course, that road, Chair, was King Charles Road. So the council installed the modal filter in King Charles Road next to the children's playground in Alexandra Park. This removed the rat run and reduced the traffic entering the Berrylands area. However, while we lost some of the non-local traffic, there was still the local traffic of people who lived and worked in the area. Because one exit was stopped, that local traffic moved to the other exits, namely Hollyfield Road, Rayburn Avenue, Elgar Avenue and Berrylands Road. But the traffic numbers are down overall from what they were before the modal filter was installed. And these numbers come from the traffic counting machines. We've heard from local residents who live in the vicinity of the modal filter how the local roads are being made safer for their children. The modal filter is next to the children's playground at Alexandra Park. And also, of course, it's very close to Fishponds Park as well. The barrier has reduced the traffic moving past this spot while letting through adults and children who are walking and cycling. And we've heard there should be a primary school coming to the corner. Now, at the moment, it's been called in by the government for review, as they have with all other schools which applied for funding. I have to say this is perfectly normal for an incoming government to review the actions of a previous government. I've never known a incoming government that's never done that. So, you know, fingers crossed that everything will be okay with the school, because there are some parents who have to travel quite some distance, up to 3 miles in some cases, to go to a school. And this would actually be very helpful for parents with primary age school children in the Berrylands area. The modal filter will provide a safe area for parents to wait for their children who are pupils at the school, and a safe corridor to walk to the children's playground and the various parks. And Fishponds is just across the road. Now, I think that children's safety and welfare is a top priority, and I'm sure that most people agree with me as well. So moving on to council policy. We've heard that the modal filter is in line with the council plan, the overarching strategic document. It is in line with the council's local implementation plan, as it supports the goals set out in the London Mayor's transport strategy. This means that it recognises that we must reduce dependency on cars and increase low-cost, accessible travel options for all residents and work to shift from car use. Now, it's very easy for us in Berrylands to think everyone has a car. Like I say, I live in Rayburn Avenue, and there's an awful lot of cars there, I have to say. But in fact, if you look at the census, 1 in 5 households in the Berrylands area do not have a car or a van. They are reliant on public transport, walking, cycling to get about. The modal filter is also in line with the Council's Climate Action Plan, which we're going to hear later more on tonight, which was agreed in 2022 and updated annually. And this aims to reduce carbon emissions and also to enable residents to have more sustainable travel options. Some objectors to the modal filter claim their roads aren't safe and they have too much traffic. Well, let's look at those roads to see what we can do within those roads to improve them. So finally, for all these reasons, I will be voting that we take no action tonight. However, as a member of the Surbiton Labour Committee, I will be supporting measures in the Berrylands Healthy Streets report that reduce the rush hour congestion in roads such as Hollyfield Road and some of the other roads which have been mentioned tonight. And I think it's also time to improve the area by the modal filter and outside the new school. Let's make all our area safe for our local residents and their children. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Giles, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and can I thank all of the speakers who have spoken this evening, and indeed all those who took the time to email in beforehand. I think I want to start my comments, Chair, by saying that the way this issue has been handled is nothing short of a disgrace to both sides.
Can I remind you, the topic,
No,
we're
it's
sticking
about-
to the agenda. We're
Yes,
sticking to
it's
the
about-
agenda and
no,
what
it's about
we're
procedure.
discussing.
It's about procedure, Madam Chair. You've allowed other members to speak. I wish to make my comments. There's been a lack of
On the
clarity.
agenda.
Yes, it's to do with how this item has been handled, Madam Chair. Thank you. There's been a lack of clarity, delays, and it's been referred here to the Place Committee when it could have been brought to the Neighbourhood Committee where people could have had a better say. But it was handed in to the Neighbourhood Committee in November 2023. It should not have taken a year of division in the community for us to get to this point. And I hope from this, the administration will learn a lot of lessons. But speaking to the petitions, one gentleman said the numbers were a record. And for a neighbourhood petition, I do believe that they are. 1,772 Alexandra and Berrylands residents against versus 454 signed in favour. Now, I agree with the points made by those in favour. This is not a referendum.
This is supposed to be a discussion about whether or not it fits the council's policy.
Excuse
That
me,
is
I'm-
not the council. Can you focus
Madam Chair,
on the agenda?
Madam Chair, I am explaining to you and to those watching the rationale for me reaching the decision I have come to. We are being asked to make a decision on this item, and I am explaining to you and to other members my point of view and my reasons for reaching it. If you will allow me, please, to continue as you afforded the courtesy to Councillor Manders. It is not a referendum, that is agreed, but this is the largest neighbourhood petition we've had for many years, and I think the strength of feeling is incredibly clear. The statistics are also quite clear that, yes, while it has reduced traffic in King Charles Road, traffic is up 34% in Hollyfield Road, it's up 40% in Pine Walk. Now, I'd argue this is not consistent with our council policy of creating safer streets for all. And one of my big concerns is that if we look at one of the annexes containing the air quality report, there were no air quality measures of Pine Walk. So we can't actually, based on the information this evening, determine whether or not the air quality has improved there. And at some times in Pine Walk, the vehicular traffic has doubled. 50 vehicles, give or take, at 1,700 hours pre-scheme, 100 vehicles recorded since the scheme was introduced. Now, it's an issue that has strength of feeling on both sides. But to me, when we consider this in the context of the entire neighbourhood, I cannot, in all good conscience and faith, say this is consistent with our council policies. And so I can't support this evening. And just finally, talking to the issue of the school and to the issue of air quality. You know, Kingston is the only authority in London which has forecast an increase in pupil numbers in the coming years. Everyone else forecasts a decrease. I would fully support a school street at this site to help reduce vehicular traffic and encourage children walking and cycling to school, if indeed the Surbiton Academy does open in 2 years' time. That is the way to address it, in my view, consistent with council policy, not this modal filter. And just finally, Madam Chair, I do agree with the comments made on both sides, that if residents don't feel they're being well served, the time to change is in 18 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm just reminding people that we have a long evening ahead of us. You're just the first item. We've got plenty more to go. So I would really like it if people can focus on the agenda and the matter in front of them. I've got another request to speak from another councillor. We go to Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions, if I may, before I pass my comment, because again, like I voiced the comments of my colleagues and say thank you to you being here, but also for all the information you've provided us with. But as we've heard, there is disagreement about what the figures actually tell us. Now, I would like to know from the officers dispassionately and professionally what the opinion is, or rather what the facts are that this information is telling us. So can we say categorically that overall in the Berrylands area, and I mean that in its area sense rather than its ward sense. So in the whole of the area, has traffic reduced or not? That's my first question. I'll come back and ask a second if I may.
Martello, are you able to respond to that question, or?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So, well, what I can tell you is that overall, there's on all of the roads that we surveyed that's detailed in the report, there is less traffic than there was pre-barrier. Now, the only caveat I put on that is we haven't included data for every single road in the area. But if you add up the increases on roads like Hollyfield, Rayburn, etc., and you subtract those from the reduction on King Charles, then there's a net decrease.
Councillor Hayes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just members of the public, we have listened in silence to you for a very long time. Give us a chance to discuss this. Thank you. Councillor Hayes.
Thank you. Can I ask what the traffic flows on Yule Road are by the hour, I suppose, it would be a number, and then how that compares with what the we've heard described as being intolerable levels within the Berrylands area.
But Hill, are you able to? It's looking it up. Right. Do you have another question, or shall I get another speaker and then?
I'll make my comment and then come back if needed on when we hear the answer. I'm quite happy to accept that some people's experience may well be that there have been increases in traffic in their road. I'm experiencing one in the road where I live because Surbiton Hill Road has been closed for some considerable time. A lot of traffic comes down Cranes Park and then into my road. It doesn't make my road dangerous. It does make it more busier. What makes roads dangerous is not necessarily the volume of traffic, but the quality of the driving. And that's what people need to focus on. And what we should be putting greater effort into, as others have suggested, is using our further powers at neighbourhood level to seek to improve all the roads through incremental improvements. I used to be a car driver, and I have to confess I was one of those who took the King Charles Road shortcut. If I was coming up from the A3, I'd turn off at the triangle at the bottom of King Charles Road and go up the length of the road over the railway bridge and then down Cranes Park to where I live. I don't drive anymore, but I do regularly visit the Berrylands area for a number of reasons. I take the K2 bus sometimes I walk. And I have to say my experience of it, having lived in the area for over 40 years, is that it's a darn sight quieter now than it was before. So I don't see that there is evidence. There is clearly opinion, and we've heard it, but I don't see that there is evidence to say that the modal filter is not working, is not doing its job. In fact, if anything, it is probably one of the most successful of those that we've introduced in the borough.
Thank you very much. Now, have we given? You've got it. Thank you. You've given him enough time to find the figure for your road. I'd be interested in that one too.
Thank you, Councillor. So yeah, I've just checked. I found the numbers for your road. So the average daily traffic flow in 2023 for Yule Road at the Surbiton end, 17,751, and at the Tolworth end, 20,757. So obviously clearly significantly higher than the other roads we're discussing, although those figures have fallen significantly since 2017 when they were up at between 24 and 28,000.
Thank you very much. Now, moving to a speaker, we've got, what about Councillor Ian George? Would you like to speak?
Thank you very much. I've got a bit of a preamble to explain, and then I shall be asking some questions. I'm preempting some interruptions from the chair. I do need to address these issues, and they have been brought up at this meeting, and I need to make my views known on these issues, because if I don't do it at this committee meeting, then where the hell else am I supposed to do it? I will then have further questions after this with less of a preamble. You'll be pleased to hear. Now, the LTN that's been discussed here today at Place Committee does bypass the input of local councillors at the neighbourhood committee and prevents local residents from having full and proper input into the discussion that should be taking place in order to make the best decision. Local residents have the best local knowledge. Yes, it should come to place, but after the neighbourhood has gone through it in detail and given all residents plenty of opportunity to talk it through and discuss it. Now, it may be constitutionally sound to bring it to Place Committee, as we heard earlier, but it doesn't have to. And it would obviously be better to discuss it at Surbiton neighbourhood first. Residents will rightly be wondering why their ward councillors have sought to wash their hands of the decision and prevent residents from having a long and detailed discussion on the issue. Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee has not discussed it with all of this additional information that has been made available. How would your ward councillors have voted? Maybe you'll never know. The Tolworth scheme was discussed at length and had many meetings, including one just on that issue. This is a Surbiton neighbourhood issue. Just look at where the comments are coming from. Look at the addresses from each of the petitions. As council petitions go, both for and against, these are remarkably local residents to Barrowlands and Alexandra. I've never seen it such before. All the big petitions we have end up with people all over the place, many from out of the borough for some reason. Now, the statements we have heard today have been interesting and informative from residents. However, it's not the same as a two-way discussion. We have been told that the chair has no power to expend the earlier time for residents' questions, where they do at least have a chance to respond. That's exactly why this is the wrong forum and place to discuss this issue. Residents' voices are being gagged. Ward councillors are washing their hands of the issue. It's cowardly and a decision mired in Lib Dem politics. Now, whatever the outcome today, whether you like the outcome or not, as a resident, you should be very concerned about how this has bypassed the neighbourhood committee at this precise and important point. There'll be other important issues coming up in future years that directly affect all of you. Don't be surprised if yet again the Surbiton councillors wash their hands, give you less of a say in the outcome. Now, my first questions. Who took the decision to bring it to place rather than Surbiton neighbourhood tonight? I don't need to know that you can, but who took that decision? Also, I understand from a Liberal Democrat councillor that a pre-meeting of Lib Dem councillors took place last week and that a decision was made on how the Lib Dem group will vote tonight. Did that vote take place? Did that meeting take place? Did you agree a group decision, and what was it? Now, lots of information has been requested by residents and councillors, but not received by the time of this meeting, which simply isn't right. I've got a whole page of 4 really good questions here, all detailed with headings, subheadings, this would have been great to have known the answers to these, to actually make an informed decision, but we don't get it. Indeed, some raw data of the traffic surveys was requested by residents in July as part of an FOI request, yet the information has only just been received. Now, I understand that Councillor Manders said at Neighbourhood Committee that it was looking into whether we should issue information due to fear of misinterpretation. Now, I don't believe it's acceptable to withhold that information that is readily available unless there's a good reason. Not giving it your spin is not a suitable reason. Why was that requested data withheld? And why were residents and councillors provided with responses to questions asked in good time? That's my first set of questions. Thank you.
Are we going to, the trouble is that your set of questions do not relate to the agenda and do not relate to the matter in hand. And either you can have them, you can say them, but I'm trying to stick to this agenda, okay? And I just need to stick to the agenda because I don't want to be here in the early hours of the morning. I've got a home to go to. I've got a bed to get into before, midnight.
Well, that's a good point.
So can we please?
Yet again, that is the reason why it shouldn't be here. We've got a massive agenda with loads of other stuff to do. And now we're trying to rush this really important thing through to make space for this other stuff.
Okay. Can we move on back onto the agenda? Can you move back onto the agenda? And what are your next questions? Have you got any questions of the officers or relating to this?
Well,
under what section is your point of order, please?
I will look up the exact procedural rule if you will like me to, Madam Chair.
Yes, I don't accept random points of order. I stick to the Constitution. Tell me which point of order and which part of the Constitution. I have the Constitution here available.
If you will bear with me, I will Google it and revert back to you.
Whilst he's having his point of order and just trying to work it out, can we move on to your next part of your...
Can I ask why other councillors have been able to go off on a tangent and talk about other things that are directly involved with the end of this decision? We haven't got the information. We haven't been provided with the information. That's very relevant, I would have thought. If you haven't got the relevant information, you can't make that decision. And we haven't had the input of all the local residents, and it hasn't gone through Neighbourhood Committee properly. And so we haven't got that information. That's directly involved with this decision today.
What we have in front of us is, based on the information we have in front of us, that is what we're asked to say, not any other, based on the information we have in front of us, does this fit the policy? Yes or no? Your point of order, what section and where it is, so I can look at it.
We do have that information. It may not be in front of us, but we've got all the officers here who have that information.
Well, ask them.
These are very knowledgeable officers.
Well, I'm expecting you to ask them questions. Go ahead. As soon as I've dealt with a point of order, I can get your list of questions for the officers ready and we'll get the answers. All right, your point of order.
Procedural Rule 8, motions. Madam Chair, Councillor George has asked a number of very pertinent questions, given this item has only been brought up because it is receiving a petition. The petition is being heard. His questions relate to the petition. Given that answers on that are not forthcoming and you're not seemingly allowing the officers to answer how you have reached the point we have reached, and given there are at least 4 pages of questions outstanding, unless you would like Councillor George to read them all out for oral answer here this evening, I would like to propose an amendment to the resolution that the item be deferred and referred back to Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee for final determination. And for that, I welcome a seconder.
I will obviously second that.
Which exact one are you saying? Because we're trying to find it here.
I'm proposing an amendment to the resolution.
No, before that, the rule.
Under Procedural Rule 8 regarding motions, allowing members to submit amendments to resolutions put forward.
You said a point of order was first, that you stopped the meeting for a point of order. What is your point of order?
My point of order is to move an amendment, Madam
That's different from what
No,
you
it's
started
not.
out with.
No, it's
Let's
not.
start out with that. Right. One moment. Now the first thing was, I've just been informed, and it is in the papers, and we have those who were present at Surbiton Neighbourhood. Back on the 22nd of July, 2021, it was discussed and agreed to be made permanent then. That was 3 years ago it was done. Thank you, we've heard from you. Please, we've heard from you earlier. Now it's the time for the councillors. Now, we've got your motion, your amendment you wanted to put forward. I'm sorry, your procedural vote doesn't relate to this committee, so you can't have it. But once we've heard from everybody else, we'll consider what we'll do. But your raising of amendment is not within the Constitution and cannot be done. I've heard this from Herman, who's advising me on this.
No, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. At any committee, when any member proposes an amendment that is duly seconded, as mine has been, debate moves to that amendment. We then go back to debating the substantive. I believe the Deputy Monitoring Officer is in attendance, and I would welcome her comments on it. But it is long-standing in this authority that when a member moves an amendment and it is duly seconded, that debate moves into that, we have a vote on the amendment, then we go back to the substantive.
As I understand, we will listen to we understand your amendment is to defer this to the neighbourhood. That's your amendment. We'll put it to the vote then. Those in favour, have I understood it? You okay? Would you like to speak again on it?
Madam Chair, once an amendment is proposed and seconded, all members are given the opportunity to comment procedurally, at which point the seconder is then given the opportunity to speak, and then myself as the mover of the amendment makes closing remarks. We cannot move straight to a vote unless you move under procedural rules that we move to the vote, and that in itself must then be voted on.
Well, please make it snappy because I'm not going to be here all night and we've got a long agenda. So can you please present your amendment?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, you misunderstand. I've presented my amendment.
Okay, now, does your seconder wish to speak? You've done your bit. Councillor George, do you? No, I'm asking that your seconder, does he wish to speak?
I shall be very brief. I think the thing is, are the councillors opposite going to prevent residents from having a proper say? And it needs to be set up properly so that we can have proper discussions, like we had on the Tolworth issue. Why are the people in Surbiton going to be counted as less than the people in Tolworth? That's not on. So that's pretty much all I've got to say. But, let's just do the right thing. Let's have a proper discussion. These neighbourhoods were brought in by the Liberal Democrats because the decision is better taken local. We keep getting that rammed down our throats. Yet, when it comes to a bit of stuff that you don't really want to hear, it gets all a bit too frightening for you. You wash your hands of it and bring it to here. We've heard lots of information today. If we come up with more information, we can have a proper roundtable discussion. Let's beat something out. Are there better things that we could do? Is it all or nothing? It maybe it doesn't have to be, but come on, let's just be reasonable about it.
Does anybody else wish to speak on the amendment? No. Oh, Councillor Hayes, would you wish to speak on the amendment?
Well, very briefly, what we're doing this evening does not preclude any further discussion at neighbourhood. In fact, I'm sure this itself will be reported back to neighbourhood, and there will be ample opportunity for the neighbourhood to consider this and other matters. As you've pointed out, Chair, we're here to do this committee's business this evening, not to do the neighbourhood's business for it.
Councillor Waring, you wish to add to it?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor George has been on various planning committees with me over the years, and has been told as often as I have that we can only sort of vote and decide on what's put in front of us. The recommendation is to the committee's asked to resolve that, being consistent with borough-wide policy, much as that's sort of a clause in itself. Carries on, the King Charles Road modal filter be retained as shown Annex 1. Being consistent with borough-wide policy is kind of a strategic committee within their remit to make a decision and to have a discussion on. So we can only discuss and decide what's put in front of us, and whether it's consistent with borough-wide policy or not is our discussion. The discussions to be had at neighbourhood about the future of the LTN should absolutely be had at neighbourhood, but we can only discuss and decide on what's put in front of us.
Thank you. Shall we put it to the vote? No, hang on, you've spoken as mover already. Okay, right, you may make it quick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may, the item is titled Petitions on King Charles Road Modal Traffic Filter. We're only discussing this because of the petitions. Now, I know this administration has upped the thresholds for hearing petitions twofold. We don't get many of them anymore. That doesn't negate from the fact this item is about the petitions that have been received. And so it is wholly proper that Councillor George's questions on the petition and the procedure are answered. However, our petition scheme states that over 1,000 signatures should go to full council. It's a strategic matter. It's reached the threshold. It should be there. However, neighbourhood councillors, given it is a hyper-local issue, should be given the final say. And for the benefit of the some, I think, 62 viewers on YouTube who will not be able to see a show of hands, I'm requesting a roll call vote, please, Madam Chair, procedural rule number 26.
I would not expect anything less from you. Right, now let's go to the vote on the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment?
Madam Chair, under PR 26, I've requested a vote under roll call.
Yes, those, as I say, those in favour, raise your hand and say your name to Herman when requested.
Thank you. I'm just going to call in accordance. All right, it's just with this list. Okay. This is the vote on the amendment proposed by Councillor Giles and seconded by Councillor George on deferring the decision to serve the neighbourhood committee. Councillor Davey.
Against.
Councillor Holt.
Against.
Councillor Mendes.
Against.
Councillor Nadelli.
Against.
Councillor Bainan.
Against.
Councillor Bolton.
Against.
Councillor Durrant.
Against.
Councillor George.
For.
Councillor Giles.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
Against.
Councillor Kirsch.
Against.
Councillor Manthel.
Against.
And Councillor Waring.
Yeah, against.
So, Chair, I have 11 members against, 2 for, and no abstentions.
Now, let's return to the matter in front of us, which is the motion, which is, we're based on the evidence in front of us that whether or not we're going to be, whether or not the modal filter meets the policy. Now, you were going to now speak on the motion, weren't you? Now, you've got questions you'd like to ask. Let's get through the questions. We've still got 2 more people wanting to speak as well. So you can have your questions, and then we're moving over to the others who want to speak.
Thank you. It was mentioned earlier, one of the speakers, that all the options have been tried at that area to calm and reduce traffic. Can we have a list of what actually has been tried there? You know, I think that apparently there's been a zebra crossing there apparently, and you know, there are many different options right throughout the borough that we use to reduce and slow down cars. So I'd like to know what options have been put in place at this area over the years, and to what extent they've been successful or not.
Okay.
And are there any further options that have been used elsewhere in the borough that could be used at this place?
I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding here, because they've got, as I understand it, you've got a safer streets coming up. So there's going to be far more suggestions coming forward. So you can get the historical things, but we're not saying all that are possible. That nobody said that, as I understand it. I can revert to Councillor Manders or Councillor Holt, who are on that committee. You're expecting, Councillor Manders, you're expecting considerably more to come forward.
Yes, we are, Chair. The Berrylands Healthy Streets report is due for the committee, and that's where we can examine further measures to be taken in the whole Berrylands area, which is Berrylands, Alexandra Ward, and also part of Surbiton Hill as well. In terms of King Charles Road, as we heard from one of the residents actually earlier, so various things were attempted in King Charles Road to calm the traffic, as it were, including, I suppose, what I would describe as traffic throttles. There's 2 of those which still remain in the road, but they proved to be inadequate. And clearly also in the northern part of it, King Charles Road Bridge is only one way for motor vehicles. So that was again another restriction, but all of those things failed in the end to achieve the level of safety that the residents wanted. If I've missed anything else, I'm sure another councillor can come in and add to what I've said.
Councillor Holt, do you have anything you need to add?
No, I think you've covered it, but the key thing is it's coming to a future Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee.
So is that helpful to you? But we're
not really, no, because the reason why it was mentioned was the modal filter was required because everything else had failed and there was nothing else that could be done.
No, I think there's a confusion here. I think
that's what one of the residents said.
That's what the resident may feel.
Yeah.
Then they're entitled to that view. But we can just check with Matt Hill. Was the reason why the modal filter went in because we had tried every other traffic calming measure available in this country on King Charles Road?
Chair, I think that's probably a no to that question. It is one of a suite of measures, and it was a measure that was appropriate and in line with policy and the funding arrangements that were around at that time. We have had previous arrangements, which Councillor Manners has alluded to, speed humps, narrowings, and so on. Obviously, the Berrylands report and other policies would enable us to build on that in future if we wanted to do more measures or different measures.
Thank you. Now your next question.
Yeah, so if, and I'm guessing it's unlikely, judging by other councillors opposite me, if the modal filter was removed, if we decided to go down that route, could we introduce these? You know, we've been produced with a all or nothing situation at the moment, where actually there is a potential middle way, but we haven't been offered that as an option. And I wonder why that.
It's because we're not the neighbourhood. We've got, what we've got in front of us, as I say, we've been asked to make a decision based on the evidence you have in front of you, not what you'd like or what you wish for, whatever. Based on this evidence, does it fit the policy? That's what's being asked. We're not, it's up to neighbourhood to decide what they do, but this is what we're being asked. Does it fit the policy? Yes or no? So if you've got a question relating to the policy or to the papers, I'll take it. Otherwise, I'm going to move on.
Thank you. Right. Page A5, table 1. It talks about an additional 300 to 500 drivers equates to approximately 1 additional car driving to Berrylands every 2 to 3 minutes across a 12-hour period, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Is that every 3-minute period across that whole 12-hour period? Because it would be most unusual to do it that way. Traffic comes in busy times and less busy times. So I just wondered why, if it has been spread over a 12-year period, why it was done in that way. Thank you.
Hill, perhaps you could explain why you've put that figure in, why is it done like that?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think that's just an attempt by us to indicate the scale of change. So obviously they would not be evenly distributed throughout the time, but if they were, then every 2 to 3 minutes. So that's attempting to just give an indication of the scale. It is likely in reality that that will be higher in the peak hours than it would in the off-peak hours, obviously.
Thank you. I think that's why some residents are a bit annoyed at some of the information that's coming out, because that's not real world for them. What a car every 2 to 3 minutes isn't what they're noticing, and that would explain it. And I think perhaps the information that is being given should be weighted for those busy times, so that people can actually understand that. I think that's all my questions for the time.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on, because okay, we've got Councillor Bolton, and I would say, I'm just mentioning to people, we're on the first item of the agenda. There's plenty more on this agenda, and I imagine a lot of you will be going home after this session, but the rest of us will be sitting here a long time. So, thank you. Andrew Bolton.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'll keep it very brief because I'm conscious of the time. But thank you to the residents for all the emails, dozens and dozens of them. I did read them all, and some very impressive contributions tonight. But I'm slightly concerned, and this does build on slightly what Councillor Hayes and Councillor George just now have alluded to in their questions. It's a slight worry, because one of the main objectors, and we've heard some emotive language, but generally speaking, things have been good-humoured and well behaved, if I can put it like that. But one of the main objectors used the term that he felt that data had been massaged in order to produce a certain result. And I'm just wondering if I think this would be best for Matt Hill, actually, the senior officer. Can we be absolutely assured that no such thing has happened in terms of the data that has been presented to us tonight, and we can be absolutely confident that what we're being told tonight is a fair reflection of the true situation on the ground as experienced by the residents both in King Charles Road and elsewhere in Berrylands? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, what I can confirm, I think, is that we've provided a lot of data, and we've attempted to show you in as objective fashion as we can the results from that, how to interpret that data. Now, obviously, people can always interpret data in different ways, and I can't 100% guarantee that buried within this data, there is something that might be slightly different or interpreted differently, but the actual data is all there. The data has been validated as far as possible to do so. Now, obviously, there are caveats around when surveys are taken and all that kind of thing, but we feel that this is a fair representation.
Thank you. Do you have anything else to add? Councillor Waring, did you want to, so you said your put?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've just got some comments to make. This is horrible. This is really horrible. But it's not that unfamiliar. If you've got any familiarity with low traffic neighbourhoods, and believe me, I have, you sort of get to panic a little bit when this happens. The thing is with the LTNs, division was baked in from the start, coming in sort of mid 2020. I oversaw and was, well, still am councillor in Norbiton when we introduced the low traffic neighbourhood on Albert Road on the junction with Hawks and Villiers. And in the run up to it, I was asked, why is it being introduced at speed? Why is there no consultation? This was down to Department for Transport. They offered the funding. They told us to move quickly and they changed the legislation. So as where historically you'd have a consultation, then a decision, then implementation, you had the decision and then the implementation and consultation at exactly the same time. That got everyone's backs up at a time where everyone was really quite angry anyway because they were locked down, because they felt that this was happening to them and not with them. Whereas what it actually did is it gave us a lived experience. These experimental traffic management orders get us to see what happens rather than hear what people think will happen. We can actually find out. Now, there's no two ways about it. A low traffic neighbourhood on its own is not a silver bullet. It's very clear that there are problems on the surrounding roads. And I think that the discussion about whether this should be at neighbourhood or at a strategic committee kind of splits off a little bit here, because with the problems that are being referenced on the roads surrounding the low traffic neighbourhood, I would hope very, very much that the neighbourhood councillors are taking this on board, realise that they've got a problem on those roads in their neighbourhood and they should do something about those roads and do it quite soon with all of you. With respect, it's my turn to speak and I heard you speak and I didn't say anything. So the councillors have got work to do and I hope it's focused your minds. Now, when it comes to the overarching problem of too many cars on our roads, and that is the problem, there are too many cars on our roads. It's as simple as that. When it comes to that, there are limited levers that are within the reach of local authorities and the democratically elected representatives in them. We can't do anything about freezing fuel duty. We can't do anything about the automotive industry with its adverts that shows every single road being completely empty apart from one car. We can't do anything about that, but there are things that we can do, and this is one of them. Now, we live in a representative democracy. I think it's really important in all of this, the discussion about how many people signed one petition and how many people signed another. This is a representative democracy. And the only way anyone can tell if an elected representative is doing a good job or not happens every 4 years. Again, it's as simple as that. The next local elections are in May 2026, FYI.
The agenda. I keep reminding people that lovely agenda.
The 2022 election, I've nearly finished, Chair. Thank you. I think it does, actually. The 2022 election retained the Lib Dem councillors in this area. Those councillors were elected on a manifesto in 2018 that said they wanted to make the streets safer. The manifesto, the measure was introduced in August 2020. Those councillors were voted in again 2 years later. Now, I was going to actually abstain on this. I'm not particularly comfortable with this coming to a strategic committee. This is a local issue for local people and for neighbourhood committees. It absolutely is. However, as I said to Councillor George, that we can only discuss and decide on what's put in front of us, with the resolution being about whether this was consistent with borough-wide policy or not. That's when I sit up and take a sip of coffee. It's not a breach of council policy. It's absolutely not. I was a councillor from 2018 to 2022. I stood on a manifesto that said we wanted to make our streets safer, and I got in, and you got Liberal Democrat councillors in. It's not a breach. Now, my last couple of points is, removing a measure that is supported at the ballot box, because again, that's kind of what it all boils down to in a representative democracy. Removing a measure, I just don't see that as progress. I think doing more is. And I think for those people that want this removed, I think it's really important that you ask yourself the question, why? Now, if the answer to that question is because it makes my street busier, then please contact your local councillors and go to your local councillors and hold their feet to the fire and come to your neighbourhood committee and in those 30 minutes, public questions, ask them what they're going to do about your road.
Agenda.
Okay? If the latter, if it's because it makes your journey longer, then I'm afraid my only advice to you is to stand to be a councillor in May 2026.
Thank you. Now we've heard from everyone in the committee. I think, can we move to a vote? We've had an awful lot. We've gone on to 2 hours on this one thing. You were given quite a lot of time earlier, and I think it's time that we move to we're going to go to one of your favourite types of votes, where it's going to be, what do they call it? A vote where everybody has to give who's voting which way, a named vote. Yes, we'll definitely go for that. Are you up for that? Let's go for a name vote. Let's go.
Why am I not being able to ask one more question?
We've been 2 hours
on the
on this.
recommendations.
No. We've really, you've had your opportunity. We've had an awful long time.
Well, you're asking me to vote without giving a reason for my vote.
Well, no. I'm asking you. No. I'm just asking. Let's move to the vote. We've agreed to move to the vote, and we've had 2 hours on this. And I don't know about others. There might be needs for comfort breaks soon too. So let's move to a vote.
Excuse me, can I just say, we're talking about borough-wide policy, and I don't know that everybody agrees what that is and what that.
If you look at the agenda, when you read the agenda and you start at the beginning part of this part of it, you'll find it, because I asked them to put it nice and clear, under on page A2, paragraph C, all there. And I'm sure you've read it. Well, let's just move to that vote. Okay, we're going for a name vote, so you'll have plenty of time to read that. So Herman, can we move to the vote?
So it is a vote on the original motion in page A1. Councillor Davey.
4.
Councillor Holt.
4.
Councillor Mendes.
4.
Councillor Nardelli.
4.
Councillor Bainan.
4.
Councillor Bolton. Councillor Durant.
4.
Councillor George.
Because of the lack of information given, the lack of answers to the 37 questions and the withholding of information.
You're meant to be voting, saying which way you're going to vote.
You haven't given me the opportunity, have you? Because of that, there is not enough information for us to be sure that it is consistent with borough-wide policy. Because it's not just in that particular area about cycle use, about car use, and about air quality. It's more wider than that. And if that's how we're doing it, then from the information we got here, without the information that has been requested, then I will have to vote against it. However, I might have voted for it if that information had been available. But you have prevented that from being made available, and you've prevented a proper discussion.
So I take that as a vote against, based on the fact that the paper's in front of us. Moving on, Herman.
Councillor Giles.
I'll be siding with the majority of residents and voting against.
Councillor Hayes.
4.
Councillor Kirsch.
4.
Councillor Menthel.
4.
Councillor Waring.
Yep, 4.
Sorry, Councillor Waring, I just double check at 4. Okay. So, Chair, to report the votes, I've got 11 votes for the original motion, 2 against.
Thank you very much. And thank you for everyone for attending. And thank you for joining in the debate and listening and being so patient. And thank you especially the people who have come for the later items on the agenda. And thank you for all your emails. Thank you very much indeed. And can we just have a brief break, if anybody minds, to pop to the loo? Those people who have a cigarette break, if you must smoke, just a moment's leg stretch, because it's been a long time. We're ready to start back, and we've got the hardcore public here who are in for the duration. Excellent. Keep going. Right. We're on to item 7, Kingston to New Malden cycle route development and funding arrangements. With agenda 7 talks about now. Members of the committee may refer to Appendix B of the agenda pack and the late material included Annex 3, which is the summary report of the public consultation for the cycle route. We have in attendance tonight Matthew Hill, Assistant Director for Highways, Transport Regulatory Services, and Councillor Nardelli and other officers to introduce the report. She's got to earn her keep, so there we go. Now, I now invite members of the public. You're not, Councillor Nardelli, you're going to introduce the report. Off you go.
I had a feeling I might. The proposal is to provide a high-quality cycle facility along the unbuilt section of the route between California Road in New Malden and Kingston Town Centre. This is part of the original plan to have the cycle lane going all the way to Kingston Town from New Malden. The council has committed to invest in the partnership with Transport for London in its Mini Holland project, developing significant strategic cycle network focused on Kingston Town, investing over 30 million in implementing a significant number of new high standard routes, which are showing increasing usage. That is the paper.
That's it. You've got it. Is that, you finished? Matthew Hill, do you want to add anything to that?
Not at this point. I think that's a reasonable summary. I'm sure there'll be questions.
So now we can move to public comments. I now invite members of the public. I've got some. Matt Stephen, would you like to come forward? Having waited so patiently, you deserve a medal. 2 hours worth of waiting. So come, take a seat. You know the procedure. Press that red button and you can speak. Hang on. I've done something wrong here.
No, nothing wrong. I'm just reminding that your discretion, giving the time.
Oh, it's my discretion. I'm giving you 2 minutes. If you're happy with that. Okay, I'll be generous.
Thank you.
Because you've waited a long time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Matt Stephen, and I'm speaking on behalf of Kingston Cycling Campaign, which has hundreds of members across the Kingston Borough. I wanted to begin by reminding committee members that high-quality, safe cycle routes lead to increases in levels of cycling and also the diversity of those cycling, as has been shown elsewhere in Kingston already and across London. The current incomplete status of the cycleway we're discussing this evening leaves a critical gap in an otherwise 3.5 kilometre safer cycleway from Kingston Station to New Malden, meaning the road remains an unwelcome and hazardous road for those cycling, particularly for children. Some of the proposals will help reverse this danger, providing protection from those cycling from motor vehicles, as well as improving some of the walking facilities. However, we remain concerned about the addition of the bus lane from the previously agreed proposals. The relevant government advice states that a bus lane does not provide a cycling environment which is attractive to a wide range of people and should therefore not be regarded as inclusive. Whilst Kingston Cycling Campaign overall supports the completion of the cycleway, we have 4 requests for the council. Number 1, we ask the council to continue to work with Transport for London to look at the need for a bus lane as part of the detailed design process, particularly as the pre-COVID set and modelling undertaken showed it had a very, very marginal benefit for buses.
30 seconds.
Number 2, if the bus lane is kept, we ask that it is for buses only and excludes all other motor vehicles, i.e. taxis and motorcycles are not permitted. We ask that the committee makes that clear by amending the proposed resolution this evening to increase the safety of people cycling. This could be done on an experimental basis. 3, we ask the council to ensure that the route is of high quality and not impeded by trees or other obstacles. And 4, we ask the council to look at completed sections of the cycleway.
Time is up.
I've finished. Thank you. So look at alternatives to vehicles loading in the middle of the cycle track This obstructs cyclists and reduces safety. We would also like the route to be better connected to the Cut and Beeline Way via Elm Road. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now I will move from the chair, the recommendation at the front of the report on page B1. Committee is asked to resolve that the construction of the unbuilt sections, you can see it there, of the sections of the Kingston to New Malden cycle route as set out in paragraphs 8 to 11 and annexes 1 and 2 of the report be approved and subject to allocation of budget, and authority delegated to the Assistant Director of Highways, the Transport and Regulatory Services in consultation with the relevant portfolio holder for amendment of the designs as required. Councillor Nardelli, will you second this motion?
Could I second this motion, please?
Yes, right. Now, people who want to speak, we've got. Oh.
Wearing Bolton, and Durant, Casamondas. Okay. Yeah. Got 6. Yeah, I got it.
Let's just compare. Ian, you put your, Councillor Manners, you put your hand up first. Let's hear from you.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to cover something which was said by the member of the public who spoke on the matter, and I could probably speak a little bit looser than the officers can about this. The reason why we are here with this particular decision is because the original agreement with Transport for London was that we would take out the bus lane, but then later Transport for London came back and said they wanted the bus lane. So that's the reason why this item is here tonight in this particular format. So in the end, they are the overarching highway authority, and they also provide, hopefully anyway, a significant amount of funding for this. So that's the compromise anyway that we have to live with. This particular route, there really actually is very little alternative. If you think about the corridor, it essentially follows the Hogsmill River for a part of the way, and it also is bounded by railway lines and so on. There aren't really many back street options to lead cyclists down, so we have to do something about the Kingston Road and this corridor going from Kingston down to New Malden. This is going to be our best shot at doing that, and so I would ask everyone to support this tonight. Let's get these cycle routes finished, and then we can then move on to further things to improve safety for cyclists.
Thank you. Councillor Durant, would you like to?
Thank you. Yeah, obviously I am quite a regular cyclist between New Malden and Kingston, so I am looking forward to seeing this being completed. I do have a couple of questions. I do want to understand a little bit more about the safety mitigations with regards to a joint bus stop, a bus lane and cycle lane, because I do use that stretch, and obviously when a bus comes behind you, it is a little bit disconcerting sometimes. So that's first point. Second point is on B2. It says paragraph G, it talks about the detailed design, construction and estimate for proposed designs is 3.34 million. A bid for the full amount will be included in the local council's implementation plan. And it says, depending on the amount actually allocated by TfL, the council will need to fund any remaining budget itself. I would just ask that we would be able to see how much TfL is going to fund of that, and if it does turn out to be that the majority of the balance is to be spent by the council, that we get sight and view of that and the ability to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Hill, would you like to respond to those questions?
Thank you, Chair. On the first point, yeah, I don't think I would dispute that sharing of bus lanes is a compromise. We have within these designs, wherever possible, widened the bus lane from its existing layout. So it's, at the moment, it's pretty minimal width. So wherever we have got the space to do it, we will widen the bus lane. We will still be taking out sections of it where it's too narrow and providing a segregated cycle lane. So it won't be. So it will be less bus lane than it is at the moment, although most of it is intended to be retained, if that makes sense. And I know it's not a space issue, but we are proposing to make it 24/7 rather than just the AM peak. So even when there are, less buses on the road, there will still be the benefit of that lane for cyclists. On the second point, the money. Sorry. It's been a long evening. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a significant sum of money. We will bid for the whole funding. Well, subject to this committee approving the LIP this evening, we intend to bid for the full amount. I would be surprised if TfL don't expect Kingston to make some kind of contribution. Obviously, we would work closely with the portfolio holder around that, and and it would need to go through, if we had to make a significant capital contribution, it would need to go through the relevant approval process. And if that was significant enough, it would have to go to committee. So yeah, there will be member oversight on that before we launch in. And what I would say is that if we get to the position where we cannot raise all of the money, or at least can't raise all of the money in one go, we would not commit to starting well, we may commit to starting parts of the route, but we wouldn't commit to starting anything we couldn't finish, if you see what I mean. So we would either not start at all, or we would take it in chunks and say, well, we've got enough money for that chunk, so we're prepared to start that chunk. Does that help?
Thank you. And could I have Councillor George, please?
Thank you. That was my first question, so that's that one off the list. B5 theme 3, talking about what widened bus lanes, which has already been mentioned for bikes. I was just wondering how much wider they are, and whether, does that mean as a cyclist I'm supposed to be cycling along and a bus will be coming along with me and will stay within its thing? I was just wondering, I mean, preferably I'd rather go behind a bus rather than cycling alongside it, but maybe that's just me. Theme 6, talk about, I just wonder where the closest parking for the shops and businesses are that are mentioned there. Are there areas with less restrictions on them nearby? B8, table 2. The emergency services, there's no response from the fire and ambulance. I mean, that sort of stands out as rather worrying to me that we haven't got that. And I know it's probably their fault, but we are making decisions without their input by the looks of it, or maybe not. And B8, table 2, businesses. I just wonder if there's any specific problems mentioned about businesses. It sort of touches on it here, and then it says there's some stuff above, and I couldn't really see anything above. And then it talks about Annex 3, and I went to Annex 3, and I'm amazed that if businesses are concerned about this and the effect it will have on their businesses, that there's no specific issues that they brought up included in the report. Thank you.
Matthew Hill, do you have some responses to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just coming back to the bus lane. So at their minimum, the bus lane will be 3.2 metres in width, but we have widened it to 4 metres where we've got sufficient width. Obviously, 3.2 metres, should there be, I mean, the point about the bus lane along that stretch as well is there will be times when, yes, there is queuing traffic in the other lane, but there will be times when there is not queuing traffic in the other lane, at which point you would hope that a bus would take, the bus doesn't have to stay in the bus lane if there's space for it to pull out round a cyclist. No blue light response. Yeah, so we have a response from the police, or police have been involved in our road safety audit, but nothing from the other two organisations. That's true. I would hope that that means that they are, no worse than neutral on it, because they normally come forward if they have an issue. But I can't be certain. In terms of businesses, parking for businesses, so most of the businesses, certainly on the more westerly stretch, have got drop curbs in order that it can load and/or some customer parking. There is parking in side roads around Georgia Road, California Road as well. So, yeah, I think there is sufficient there. There will need to be some change of habits, obviously, although, like I said, most of the ones, certainly at the western end, have got drop curbs in any case. Just in terms of the business engagement. So, businesses were consulted as part of the public consultation. I don't think we broke out their responses separately, but I'll double check the consultation report on that and come back to you.
Thank you. And,
Thank you.
Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first of all, it's worth noting that I first responded to the consultation on this scheme back in 2016, if not 2017, about this scheme, as did the Morden Independent Community Organisation, which I chaired at the time. And one of our big concerns, and one of the concerns of many in the initial consultation, was regarding the removal of the bus lane, which TfL did report would result in an increased journey time. And so I'm very pleased to see in these revised plans the retention of the bus lane, and I welcome it becoming 24-hour, whilst it does not provide a full segregation for cyclists. Obviously, it becoming 24-hour will mean that only buses will be the only large motorised vehicle going down them at any time of the day. And it strikes me as a good compromise, a win-win for everyone. And part of these proposals are in my ward at the Kingston Road Parade opposite the Aldi and Matalan. And I also welcome the new zebra crossing that is set to be implemented to cross over from the junction with Georgia Road and where Aldi is. These are improvements. The New Malden stretch of the cycle lane is a complete mess and has been since it was haphazardly put in with the loss of the filter lane at the junction with South Lane West. My real concern with these proposals is the impact on the businesses between Georgia Road and California Road in particular. I hear the officer's comment regarding parking currently being available in the side roads, but parking is already a great issue, especially with the construction of the Kingston East development on the former Homebase site. And we did resolve as a neighbourhood committee to reconsult on a CPZ or PPA for the roads south of Kingston Road some time ago. That consultation was meant to have taken place, as per our resolution, in January or February of this year. It's now almost a year overdue with no consultation having taken place. And so, whilst there are some improvements to the cycle lane that are proposed here compared to the last time this came round, there's still more work to do. And I would urge officers very quickly to go back to the resolution regarding the CPZ and PPA, which is causing great angst for the residents in California Road and other surrounding roads who are finding it increasingly difficult to be able to park their vehicles.
Thank you. Councillor Bolton.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I'm glad Councillor Giles harks back to 2016, because I think I may have been the secretary of his group at the time when we were having these highfalutin discussions with the highways team about the cycle routes. But anyway, I digress. I was going to express some comments about parking, the bus lane, and in fact, in particular, the Hawks Lane junction, which I think probably needs some kind of attention for somebody who knows more about it than me. But in fact, the main point of what I wanted to talk about, Councillor George has already brushed on it. In fact, it's the page B8, and it is, as we refer to them, the blue light response, because I note, Matt, that you mentioned that you hope no response from them means that they're neutral at best. But I wonder if we can actually get back onto them and find out exactly what they think, because it does seem just a little bit up in the air at the moment. You're probably quite right, but I would feel a lot happier if we actually had the fire brigade, first of all, responding to us and saying that they're fine with it. Same with the ambulance service. And in fact, it doesn't say in this document, really, although the police did engage with the process, it doesn't actually say what they said. If we could really nail that down, please, I think that would be a great deal of help. Thanks.
Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll be very happy to attempt once more to get a formal response from them and share that with you as required. Yeah.
Councillor Waring.
Thank you, Chair. Short of repeating myself from the Kingston and North Kingston Neighbourhood Committee, which Matt didn't, but John from Kingston Cycling Campaign did. There's, you know, if you think your stretch, Councillor Giles, is haphazard, this is going to sort of look a little bit like that. This is far from ideal. There's too much going on in this road that we have to make allowances for. There are mature trees. I'm not going to cut down a tree. There's a bus lane that's become kind of, or a bus service rather, it's become quite politically wee for the Mayor of London, and he wants to keep it and make sure it goes as quickly as possible. And seeing as they're paying for it, well, we kind of have to buckle to that. There are a couple of things, however, that I am going to repeat myself about to Matt from our committee when we pass comment. Number one, I'm still a little bit unclear about the proposals for Hawks Road, specifically the change in journey times for vehicles turning off Cambridge Road onto Hawks Road now, where they have the left filter coming from New Malden direction towards Kingston, compared to when the filter is removed and the left turn goes right up to where the lights give you the option to go straight on. I do recall being told that there had been modelling done, that there was basically two periods of time that were available somewhere, maybe with a contractor who has moved on, I don't know, but I was told that they were there. How much longer will it take a vehicle to conduct that manoeuvre compared to how they can do it now with the left filter lane? So yeah, I haven't let that one go, Matt, sorry. If it's any consolation, I do want to thank you very much, and please get it on the record to the highways team for running this as a full consultation. We didn't need to do that. You didn't need to do that. You had all the consultation results from way back and could have blown the dust off that. But to go back with this slightly revised plan and consult fully on it is very much appreciated. Two very quick points. Number 22 in the agenda noted that many HGVs would be using this area for the Cambridge Road estate, but HGVs also use this road to go to Villiers Road Recycling Centre. We talked about this at the Neighbourhood Committee because there are weight restrictions on all other main roads away from Villiers Road tip, the Recycle Reuse Centre, that means they can only use Villiers, Hawks, Cambridge, Kingston and out to the A3. That's their only way in and only way out. And when we talked about it, you did say, as it said in the papers, that other routes by HGVs to go to Villiers Road Recycling Centre could be invested subject to identifying funding. My question is now the time to raise that, or is it when we talk about the LIP? local implementation plan, because I really would like that funding to be applied for and secured, so that you can try to investigate whether it can be done, and if it can be done, to make it so. Because it just seems a little bit unfortunate that there's only the one way in and the one way out, and now we're looking to put a cycle lane down there. And oh, by the way, the bikes here, the bus lane. So my question's about that. And then my final one is probably more to the committee. I'm not sure if to propose this as an amendment or if we can all agree it. On the recommendation itself, number 2, the authority be delegated to the assistant director in consultation with the relevant portfolio holder for amendment of the designs as required. I would like, given that nearly all of this is in Norbiton ward, the ward councillors, and go on for your 10 metres, Councillor Giles, that they be included in the consultation, please. So I'm not sure whether to propose that as an amendment or if that can be waved through. I don't know.
You need a seconder.
I'll second that.
Okay, are we going to wave this one through? Yes, we are. It's late. Right, Matthew Hill, would you like to answer his questions?
Thank you, Chair. So I think the question on HGVs and access to Villiers Road site, I think that's a matter for the LIP. I don't think it's, so I'm happy to, or we can rehearse the answer in a few minutes. The Hawks Road one, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't have the data with me here about journey times. I'm very happy to get back to you outside this meeting. What I can say is that, yes, we have modelled it. We've worked with TfL to model the capacity of the junction. We believe the junction will stay within the acceptable, what we call degrees of saturation, which doesn't mean that delays will not occur, but it means that delays will be maintained within acceptable levels, although there will probably be slightly longer journey times for those left turning traffic. That is correct. But in terms of the actual numbers, I haven't got that in front of me, but I'm happy to come back to you outside the meeting. Was that it? That was it, yeah? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we've already agreed the amendment. We've agreed the amendment, so we're going for the vote on the amended motion. Now, is that going to be taken generally, or are we going to go for, is that unanimous? Oh, you reckon you trust us to have hands? Let's go for a show of hands then. It's risky, you never know. All right, so show of hands. Those for the amended, it's already been amended, the amended motion. Those in favour? It's not a name one, you've just got to count.
All right, yeah, I thought against.
Against the amended motion. No, so we're going for an abstention, are you? Right. Well, you've got some power, you decided to abstain on it. Right. One is
0 against and 1 abstention.
Yeah, now we're going to move on to the next. We're moving along now. We've got to the LIP. Okay. Agenda item 8, proposed local implementation plan. The hardcore is still staying for this one. You don't have to. You're going to go for it. Okay. Members of the committee may refer to Appendix C of the agenda pack and late material, including revised Annex 1. The list of proposed LIP programs has been revised by further breakdown of the budget by items in the last columns of the table. We have in attendance site Matthew Hill, and can Councillor Nick Snardelli and officers introduce the report?
It's what I live for. So this is the LIP, the local implementation plan, and every year London boroughs submit. Every year, London boroughs submit an annual funding bid to TfL for transport schemes. The council's current 3-year programme comes to an end in 24-25, and the council has been asked by TfL to submit a new 3-year programme covering 25-26 to 27-28, which will be followed by annual update for years 2 and 3. So this is about funding for us for good travel. I leave it open for the group.
Thank you very much. And now we've got public comments, and Andy Allen. 3 hours after you arrived, you've got it. You hold the floor. Thank you very much indeed for waiting so long. You've got 2 minutes, but I'll be generous on that 2 minutes.
That's fine. Thanks very much. My name's Andy Allen. I'm here on behalf of the Kingston Cycling Campaign. KCC welcomes the proposals in this year's LIP application for this funding round. We're pleased to see strong applications for all the available funding categories. We are, of course, pleased to see items for the completion of the Yeo Road and Kingston Road, Cambridge Road schemes, along with healthy streets across the borough. We're also pleased to see the development of a medium-term pipeline of larger projects, including the Fountain Roundabout and the Richmond Road corridor schemes. These schemes are of borough-wide importance, and it's important to expand the benefits of protected bike routes to other parts of the borough, linking up to the existing schemes that have been completed or are under construction. We would encourage the committee to ensure that there's a balance struck between applications that are only design phases for schemes with other applications that are for construction. Sometimes it seems there's a lot of schemes are just applied for and designed, but we never actually see anything happening on the ground. And on that topic, there's one thing. The quirks of the way that LIP applications come in is that the applications come to committees and we get to see them as members of the public. But after the TfL agrees or disagrees to the funding, the results are never made public. And that makes it very hard for us to look back at previous LIP rounds to see how much was allocated for each project.
30 seconds.
Which ones were funded, which ones were deferred. And so we'd appreciate as members of the public if the results of LIP application funding rounds could be published somehow, either by being returned to committee or put on the council's website or something similar to that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Can someone want to respond to that one immediately? Councillor Holt.
Well, it was just when you opened up to, but I said that I just wanted to say that actually that came up at Surbiton neighbourhood, that we would quite, and the officer said they would take it away, because I think it would be quite good to have this information of what we did previously and what we applied for and what we did. So I think it would be quite good to, not necessarily in this document, but maybe to come at another time to the committee, but actually preferably in this document, because I think it would be quite good to see what's been completed in the year.
Thank you. It sounds like it was worth a 3-hour wait. So, excellent. Now, moving on, I should have deviated from this agenda. Right. We're moving to the debate. I will now move from the chair the recommendations at the front of the report on page C1. I will change the reference to Annex 1 to that published in the late material. The committee is asked to resolve that the proposed schemes as listed in the revised Annex 1 in the late material be approved and included in the submission to Transport for London, TfL, and to authority be delegated to the Assistant Director of Highways, Transport and Regulatory Services in consultation with the relevant portfolio holder to approve any adjustments required to the proposed schemes should funding levels be reduced by TfL. Will Councillor Nardelli second the motion? Now, we're going to be moving to a speech. I'm hoping we are not going to be going through this line by line, okay? We're hoping to just keep, because this all has been at neighbourhood, and the opposition have clearly stated they value neighbourhoods comments and they don't want to overrule them. So we're going to be keeping it absolutely on. Now this is just leading, everybody's sticking up their hands. Come on, we're not doing another 3 hour. Right, all those members wanting to speak, put up your hands. Okay, Councillor Holt, you can start. I know you've just been up. Let's start with what you're wanting And then we'll move on.
Thank you. My comment was just going to be a brief one to say that I think, given that we had spent the first couple of hours talking about a specific piece of a low traffic neighbourhood in a specific area, I came up, what were we doing? And I just want to say this annex is showing all the things that we're doing, and I think that's and proposing to do. And it would be good if we did have a document that said what we have done, other things. The ones that I probably, and I've picked up at Surbiton Neighbourhoods, I'll be quick, is continuing the School Street programme, and I would quite like, I think it was mentioned this evening, that we would consider a school street at the new Surbiton Primary School. So that's good to see that's in the programme. And also something that I'm asked quite a lot about is a 20 miles per hour review. I think it would be really good to have some data on that. It's contributed to the scoreboard for us as a borough, and I think it would be really good to see what the outcome of that has been. So all in all, I just wanted to commend all of these things that have come forward, and it links in with all the good things that we want to do to make our borough, which I've mentioned quite a lot this evening, is the greener, fairer, and completely safer is what we'd like to see.
Thank you. Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're quite right about neighbourhoods, which is why I was quite so disappointed to see such a scant recollection of what was an incredibly detailed conversation at neighbourhood appear in this strategic report, particularly relating to the Fountain roundabout. Now, we know that there are plans to potentially remove the roundabout, to block access to Pressburg Road, to reopen back up the previous Thetford Road rat run. And my great concern, as we found at neighbourhood, is that we are bidding for money to see this through from start to finish without having done any public consultation. Now, the point around whether LIP schemes have been successful is an important one. Last year, we voted unanimously, as did the New Malden Neighbourhood vote unanimously, to bid for a scheme for £100,000 to put a new pedestrian crossing at the Kingston Road end of the Fountain roundabout, and to review loading arrangements in New Malden High Street. We approved that, so did I. I think it's a good idea. It should have happened a long time ago. Officers instead, we have learned through FOI, spent that money engaging consultants with a view to removing the roundabout in its entirety, as a large number of the options proposed. So I think we need much better oversight once these bids have come back on exactly what they are doing, because I can tell this committee I would never have voted for a bid of £100,000 for consultants to look at removing the roundabout. This was a scheme that was set aside in 2016 unanimously by all parties on this authority. And as such, whilst I'm content with the rest of the LIP submission, I'm not content with item 12, which is the Fountain roundabout line. I know there have been discussions with the cycling campaign, but not with the Association for the Blind or the Centre for Independent Living, or indeed the Residents Association. And so it would be remiss of me, I'm sure you will understand, not to propose an amendment that item is removed from the LIP submission, on the basis that I would quite contently vote for the entirety of the LIP submission, bar item 12. And obviously, should the amendment fail, then I'm afraid I'll have to vote against. And just finally, if I may, Madam Chair, I'm very grateful to the 200+ residents who have currently written to the Mayor and TfL outlining their great concerns with this proposed scheme.
I take your amendment. I just want to establish from Matthew Hill, what exactly is this? Are you, the money that you've put in for SIL, is this to, as you, it seems to be, dig up the roundabout, or is it actually a safety survey for the whole area? No decision. What exactly is that? So that helps us decide on this amendment. So what is it that the money's there for?
Thank you, Chair. So just to be absolutely clear, we've done some pre-feasibility work this year. Councillor Giles is correct to say that we did propose in the previous year's LIP a pedestrian crossing of some description there, but on doing more feasibility work, it was apparent that that wasn't going to resolve all the issues there, and therefore we needed to look at a wider study, which inevitably has cost more money and taken longer. We are at the pre-feasibility stage. We have a long list of options. We haven't ruled anything in or out, and we're committed to fully engaging with the community when we are ready to do that, starting with the New and Old Modern Neighbourhood Committee in March 2025.
Do you still wish to put forward your amendment, having heard from the officer that it's quite a different interpretation to your own? Do you, first, before you go further, I just want to know, do you want this amendment so we can go through that performance over the amendment, and then we can move back onto the motion? So do you still want your amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay, do you have a seconder?
Well, I can't have a maybe. Come on. Either you decide.
Okay. Yeah, what's your question? Ask your question, then decide whether or not you're seconding.
Thank you very much. I forgot what I was going to say now. So from memory, because I've been in several committees that this has come through, this particular bid is from a separate part of the bid for big things to do. That doesn't necessarily take away from other things. As I understand it, I don't know. You can either tell me that's true or not. In that case, if we're looking at this and it's not going to be anything as drastic as what has been talked about, and it's actually going to be a few, I don't know, few meters onto one side and a few extra white lines, does this still stand? Or would that then go back into the rest of the sort of stuff, which is the more everyday sort of improvements? Thank you.
Matthew Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, yes, so you are correct. We're intending through this to bid for a specific scheme at Fountain Roundabout through the Safer Streets Fund, which is an additional fund in addition to the core LIP. So if we are successful, we will be getting money that we wouldn't have got if we put it into the core LIP. We don't know if we'll be successful, but that fund, TfL have indicated that there's sufficient funding for one scheme per borough. We believe that this one meets a lot of the right criteria, and that's why we're submitting it in that way, and that prevents it from diluting the rest of the bid as well. So the 859,000 of core LIP would be preserved for other schemes as laid out there.
So have you decided whether or not you're going to second Councillor Giles, or have decided?
I'll second it, but I've got want to follow up on that question.
You want this is instead of talking later, or in addition to talking later?
This is to do with this specific issue. So if we decide that we're going to do some consultation and look at different schemes, and after spending, I don't know, £20,000, decided we don't want to go any further, what is that fine? Do we lose that money, and then we can claim the 20 or 100,000 or 200,000 pounds as part of that?
Chair, I think I'd answer that by saying that if ultimately there wasn't a deliverable scheme or not a deliverable scheme that met the criteria for that fund, then we would, but there was still work that we wish to do there, then we would have to then look to put that on our reserve list or the list to revisit the core LIP schemes the financial year after. But knowing everything I know at the moment, I believe there's there's a range of viable options there, but obviously we need to make sure they've got public support and all the other things and all the technical design that needs to be done. And this is an opportunity to fund that.
Right. Are you still up for seconding him? Oh, right. You've got it now. Are you wanting to speak in favour of your amendment? Or have you already? You've already spoken quite a lot. But that's not, you're going to start asking questions, then we're not talking about the amendment. You're either going to do your amendment, then your question, or your question, and forget the amendment. So what's it going to be?
Madam Chair, the amendment has already been tabled, but the question relates to the amendment, which is, I wish to clarify, because I appreciate that Matt Hill wasn't at Neighbourhood, Yunus Hamadi was. Yunus made very clear to us that this was up to £5 million for feasibility, consultation, design, and construction of a scheme of which we've been briefed of a number at the Fountain Roundabout. Earlier, the cycling campaign spoke about bids just for design, bids just for construction. I'd like clarity that at this point, we are seeking money from TfL to do the lot.
Chair, I'm happy to clarify that. So the bid would be for the lot, but because of the size of the bids for this particular pot of money, there would be stage gates that we would need to go through and get agreement and sign off from TfL at the necessary stages. So, for example, at the end of detailed design, if we didn't have a viable scheme, then it would fail at that point.
Right, so now, are you going to move your amendment? Are you going to speak to your amendment now? No. Straight to vote on the amendment. Okay. Right. Do you want one of your named amendments? We're going to shift along a bit now. Right. Okay. Councillor Hayes, are you wanting to speak again? Speak on the amendment.
I need clarity on, because there's been so much waffle, I need clarity on what this is about. And because unless you can put me straight, I think this is an amendment to rule out a fantasy as opposed to anything to do with what's actually before us this evening.
I think it's ruling out any money and any research or anything on the Fountain Roundabout. Because if you take that out of the lip, the whole lot's jettisoned. So Councillor Giles is asking us to take away all funding for all changes to the Fountain Roundabout. Have I understood you correctly?
Almost, Madam Chair. Remove funding for the reconfiguration of the roundabout.
No, this is getting too much. We're going to say, what we've got here is...
I know enough to vote against, Chair, it's okay.
The application, Madam Chair, the application is to reconfigure the roundabout. If the application were for safety improvements like a zebra crossing that we voted for, we're quite happy. But £5 million to reconfigure the junction is a big piece of work. I'm not content with it being in the lip.
Talking about up to 5 million to start off with, so it doesn't mean everyone's going shopping for the full 5 million. So let's start that. And reconfiguration, we're dancing on in angels in the hand of a pin. Where does reconfiguration come from? Painting a couple of lines, repainting that roundabout with some nice lines could be reconfiguration. So I'm going to the vote on this, and you can interpret it.
I've been briefed, as have the new and old Malden councillors, on what this scheme will look like. And based on that briefing, I am not content voting for it. It's not a complete fantasy. I had an hour-long briefing with officers.
Well, we're going to the vote. So the vote is relating to... It's deleting the whole lot. So and what is interpreted by that is basically we've got, if I read out what he's wanting to delete, he does not want us to apply for any money whatsoever from LIT to identify any options for the roundabout's reconfiguration to address pedestrian and bus users' access issues and road safety for all vulnerable road users, including cyclists. Now, that is what is going for. He does not want any money spent on that. That's what the amendment is. We're not applying for anything. That is nothing. Now, all those, you've said it, all those in favour of deleting any form of expenditure listed there on the Fountain Roundabout. Right, Councillor Giles and Councillor George, you don't want to, you second it, you don't want to, okay, right. All those against? Okay, right, let's move on. Now, there we go. Right, now let's move along. Can we move along? Because we've got a long way to go still.
It's just the amendment.
We've done the amendment, it's fallen. We're going back to the main motion, unamended. Keep it short. We've been going a long time. We've got a long way more to go. Agree. That's it. But everyone's, sorry? Everyone's agreed? No? Sorry.
Well, once it's been moved the vote, that's the constitutional, you have to go.
Yes, we go. I couldn't hear. But hang on, we've got. Are we going to, I think it's 5 to 11, 4 minutes to 11. We've still got more to go. Honestly, this has all been through neighbourhood. I think we're going to the vote because we've still got 3 more. I know, Ollie, you had a long discussion. You can have more at neighbourhood, I promise you. But we are going to go to a vote. I'll be quick, very quick answers, or you can have it in writing.
Thank you, Chair. Mac, how much would it cost to investigate HGV journeys other than Cambridge and Kingston Road, please? And could that be added?
Chair, just very quickly, I can't give you an exact sum, but you will note in the report that your request to investigate that was noted by officers, and we intend to put that in the reserve scheme list. And you'll see that also an area healthy street scheme in that for that area is on a list for years 2 and 3. So, and if funding becomes available earlier, then obviously we can bring something forward.
Okay, let's go to the vote. Right. Although
the second level, Councillor Hayes, procedural.
Well, it's procedural. No, it's okay. We're going to the vote. Don't worry about it. We're going to the vote. All those in favour? The lip. Unamended.
We are actually.
All those in favour of the motion? Okay, all those against? All those abstaining? Right.
Abstaining because I haven't had my questions answered.
Okay,
I don't have
all right.
information.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Is Kingston's climate change strategy. All right. And thank you very much to the members of the public who lasted, not quite at the bitter end, but we're still going, Right. Chair to stay. Agenda item 8, Kingston's climate action strategy. Members of the committee may refer to Appendix D of the agenda pack. We have in attendance tonight Deborah Dibb, Assistant Director of Climate Change, Environmental Registrations, Councillor Manders and Councillor Manders, would you like to introduce the report?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think I shall try and be as brief as I possibly can tonight. The members have got questions, then obviously ask them. We've made progress since 2022 on our climate action strategy. We've now got basically a detailed plan to achieve our 2030 net zero target for our own operations. And also on the nature side, we've adopted a biodiversity action plan. We've also got a better understanding of data, so not only, as it were, we can more precisely measure what we're doing, but it also can help us spot opportunities to help decarbonise the borough and also identify the local risks from climate change. So we're updating the climate action plan tonight. So the targets and the scope remain the same, but there's a stronger emphasis on preparing Kingston to adapt to local climate change. So this new document also includes a range of indicators that can be tracked to 2030 and our borough-wide target of net zero by 2038 to measure the impact of the actions taken. So I just wanted to add that officers are very much focusing on practical measures to cut carbon emissions and also to make carbon emission savings which are measurable. Priority is financial savings, such as achieved by our efficient streetlights programme, which is mentioned in the report, and also to bring in external funding as well, such as the grants that have been achieved to improve our housing and also our public buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, there's no public left. No, so we're okay. We're moving on. Right. We're going to get to whoops, I'm going to move the motion. Right. The motion is, committee is asked to resolve that the update climate change action strategy at Annex 1 of the report, which outlines the key themes and objectives to support the Council's published climate targets, be approved and used as basis for monitoring progress annually. Councillor Manders, will you? Excellent. Members wishing to speak on this, raise your hands. Councillor George. Okay, anybody else? Okay, let's move it. Right, Councillor George, speak.
Thank you. D3 table 1. Yeah, you've got the revised figures. So I just wondered if we could have an explanation why they revised. Can we expect the 23-24 figures to be revised? I'm going to do all my questions because if you won't let me come back again from previous.
Yeah, I move it. Yes, let's have a quick, quick fire questions.
One, transmissions and distribution losses. I wonder if I can have an explanation of that. Table 2, commercial sector deteriorating. I wonder why that's the case. Percentage of trips by sustainable means. There's no previous figures. I just wonder why. And then there's a 0 for EV points on the old figures. How is the green space increasing, or that's what it seems to be saying, despite extra buildings? Waste recycling is declining. We mentioned that earlier. And the green jobs that are increasing, are they based in Kingston? Thank you.
If you could answer them all on block, and then we'll go for the vote. Thank you.
I could, but I was trying to find them in the chart and didn't write them all down. But I'll try and address what I can, and if not, I can follow up an email because I need to refer to colleagues on a couple of the specifics anyway. So in terms of the revision to the figures, so I think as Councillor Manders said in his introduction, kind of part of our revision of this is really based on a better understanding of kind of data, and the scope of our direct emissions. So there were just figures that we didn't have available when we first did the plan. And off the top of my head, I think they were largely around energy use in communal areas of housing. Yeah, so that kind of showed a bit of an increase, but we basically didn't have the numbers for that before. But we've done a much more kind of forensic piece of work now, looking at all of our energy bills, etc. So we're confident that we've got everything captured there. So that was the first one. The transmission and distribution losses, I know it's a bit confusing, and that's why we've kind of put it in italics at the bottom. But it's basically a factor outside of our control, which is to do with using electricity through the national grid. Councillor Manders might be able to explain it, in fact, in a bit more detail. Yeah, but it's an automatic calculation based on the electricity that we use, but we have to put it in there, otherwise it doesn't add up. The green spaces, we're not sure on the reason for the increase, so I'll look into that and get back to you. And the green jobs are within Kingston, and sorry if I've missed anything else.
Right.
Just thank you for that. Just the industrial sector carbon emissions, which are deteriorating. I just wonder what the reason.
I'd have to provide an answer to you after the meeting. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. It's just it's the only one that's deteriorating, so it sort of stands out.
Okay, are we ready to move to a vote then? Excellent. Let's go for it. Are we unanimous? Yeah, great. Let's move on to the next one. Right. Kingston District Heat Network. Then that starts getting exciting now. We've got item 10, Kingston's District Heat Network Commercial Delivery Update and Proposed Change. Members of the committee may refer to Appendix E of the agenda pack. With attendance tonight, Matthew Essex, Executive Director of Place. Can Councillor Ian Manders and officers introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. You have to bear with me. My computer's given up, so I'm trying to find my way through a paper agenda at the moment. So
Not that young.
thank you. So is this the item about the Cambridge Road estate, or is it the item about the wider network? The overall network. Okay. So this is a proposal to go out and find a technical a partner in the commercial sector to provide the technical partnership and to design, build and operate the wider network. So members may remember that we have received nearly £12 million from the government to develop our district heat network, and the ultimate ambition is to connect together basically all the major public estate in the borough. So we're talking about the council's own buildings, such as the leisure centre, ultimately the Guildhall. We're talking about connecting up to Kingston Hospital and also Kingston University. And that will be in phase one, and then further phases would hopefully connect up other public buildings in the area, such as the police station, the law courts and so on, and also any new developments as well, which happen in Kingston Town Centre. So, needless to say, Kingston Council can't build that kind of system. We have to have some entity that has got the expertise to be able to do that, and also not only to design it and build it, but also operate it as well, because we want to keep the functions together. Because we've seen in the past where somebody builds a system and then another entity comes along and operates it, and lo and behold, there's arguments between them about why something isn't working. So that's what the proposal is tonight. But also, I need to say that the original spark for the Kingston Heat Network was to exploit the enormous amount of waste heat which is discharged from the Thames Water Hogsmill sewage treatment works. I mean, it's to give you some kind of idea, Chair, basically we could heat all the major buildings in central Kingston with the amount of heat which is discharged from that, from the Hogsmill sewage treatment works. So at the moment anyway, this heat is literally just thrown away. It's discharged in the form of wastewater into the Hogsmill, and the Hogsmill is noticeably warmer at that point than the natural environment, between 12 degrees and 20 degrees higher than the natural environment. And even by the time it reaches the Guildhall, it's still 4 degrees higher than the environment. So it's a vast amount of energy. And we originally had quite a close relationship with Thames Water. They provided figures for us that we put in for our grant application, where we received the nearly £12 million. But in the past year, as many of you know, Thames Water has had considerable financial difficulties, and also a complete change of management as well. And this has left it very difficult indeed for us to deal with Thames Water. So we are making representations at the highest level with Thames Water. And if we don't get some answers soon, then we will be taking it higher in the political level. So hopefully we will get some progress very, very soon. But in the meanwhile, we need to go and find our technical partner. And that's what this paper proposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we've got no public comments. I think the person who was going to speak have gone home probably. Now, what we've got is move to the debate. I now move from the chair the recommended to the front of the report on page E1. The committee is asked to resolve that in consideration of the factors set out in paragraphs 1 to 10 of the report, the alternative delivery option of partnering with a private district heat network special investor as set out in option C in paragraphs 11 to 15 of the report, including the procurement of a potential partner, be approved for progression for the Kingston District Heat Network, KDHN, project whilst that work continues with Thames Water. And a full business case and delivery strategy of option C be developed and reported to the relevant committee for approval prior to any contractual commitment being made. Councillor Manners, will you second this? Anybody wishing to speak on it? Quickly, let's go for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a really interesting thing. The more you read of it, the more interesting it gets, and it's really exciting that it's happening. But I do find it confusing. So I'm going to cut to the quick and try and say what my issue is. I've been reading this and I've been reading the problems with Thames Water and the problems with option B, and it comes with option C. Then I read it and it says this will cut out, you know, the need for Thames Water at the beginning. But then it goes on to mention Thames Water later. So I can understand the benefits of option C would seem to me that we're buying in specialist knowledge and help, which presumably is the main benefit. But at the end of the day, we can never cut out Thames Water because they're to do with the, because they at the end of the day everything comes back to the water. So
I think we're getting confusion.
Well, I'm confused.
I think
I'm just trying to
Councillor Manners will explain. I think what we've got is there's two. You don't have to have Thames Water in a district heat network. We can have a district heat network.
But then option C that does mention Thames Water further down.
Right,
So
oh, yeah. All right. Councillor Manners. Then I think Matthew Essex. Essex will
okay.
vote.
Well, we have to press on. Okay, so any government grant is time limited. The government's been very patient with us, I have to say, and certainly the grant making agency has been extremely understanding about the problems we have with Thames Water. But we have to move on. We can't let Thames Water's problems delay the project. So that's what this is proposing that we do. We press on with a private sector partner, okay, to be able to get a project off the ground. But you know, the prize of getting Thames Water's, you know, buying this heat from Thames Water, ultimately in the end will make the project far more viable, and also will, if it's a reasonable price, and it's just stuff they throw away at the moment, which is you know, of no value to them. If it's a decent price for that wastewater, then it will make the project a lot better in terms of carbon emissions, but also in terms of the economics of it and the price that we can offer to our customers.
Matthew Essex.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the direct answer is they're not mutually exclusive. So option A absolutely was us working with Thames Water, take their waste heat and deliver something, as Councillor Manners has rightly said, time's marching on. Yeah, to be fair, Thames Water, there is some low-level engagement back with them now, but it's, you know, it's very low level, and I'm sceptical as whether it's going to get us anywhere. We have done, as the paper makes clear, a lot of soft market testing. We've talked to a lot of potential providers and investors. There's a huge market sitting in this area now, all looking to the Energy Act coming through and heat zoning and everything else that goes with that, which gives much greater opportunity for us to really push the pace of change and implementation. And that's what the investment market's looking at. What the report is trying to say is actually we should try and harness that. There is expertise, as you say, there's capacity, there's finances sitting there, which actually could come along and deliver a completely different technical solution. But to Councillor Manders' point, in an ideal world, and I wouldn't rule it out either, we want that waste heat. You know, it's a base load, average of 14 degrees centigrade all through the year, irrespective. It is transformative in terms of the economics and the opportunity of a district heat network across the borough. So we're not ruling it out. We are looking at different delivery routes to give us that plurality of offer that we don't have at the moment.
Thanks to both of you. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Can we go to the vote? Is it unanimous? Right, let's get on to the next one. Great, you've got that, it's unanimous. Now, Cambridge Road Estate District Heat Network. So it's linked to this. Right, agenda item 11, service, it's Cambridge Road Estate District Heat Network surface this tariff setting. Members of the committee may refer to Appendix E. Please note that there are two relevant portfolio holders for this report, the portfolio of finance, assets and governance, and the portfolio for climate change, biodiversity and planning policy. There's also another one who's chairing this, who's very interested in the Cambridge Road Estate. We all have an attendance tonight, Matthew Essex. Can Councillor Ian Manders introduce the report?
Okay. Well, building a district heat network is creating a new utility. So but we're competing against utilities which have, in the case of gas pipes, have been in there for 100 years. They've been written down many years ago. We're creating a new network of heat transmission pipes, and also, in this case, we're going to have to build at least a temporary energy centre to power the Cambridge Reserve Estate before the wider network kicks in. So now, normally, a utility would charge its customers through basically a standing charge for the upkeep or the investment in the system. So in this case, it's mostly the pipe network, but also the way that the heat is generated. Now, obviously, because the Cambridge Reserve Estate is phased, that means there is only a relatively small number of residents there to pay a service charge, a standing charge. But the investment in the wider network has got to be considerable. It would be unfair to charge those residents the full whack for that network, which is really designed for later phases. So this report proposes that the residents pay basically the energy price cap for their heat energy, and then the extra costs of building that wider network is essentially really paid for by the financial arrangements of the Cambridge Reserve Estate. Now, later on, when there are enough customers, then there should be provision, then enough income to pay back that float effectively. So, so we're saying we're not going to fully charge the residents for the full cost of the network. They're going to limit their charges to the energy price cap, and then ultimately the extra subsidy effectively we're given would be paid back when the system becomes economic.
Thank you. It doesn't mean they're going to suddenly whack up the prices. There will probably be a cap in place by then for district heat networks. So now, can I move? Yeah, can I move the motion? Have I got a, well, now move from the chair, recommendation at the front of the report, page F1. Will you second this? Sorry, I've got muddled. Would you like to second it? Excellent. Now, anybody wants to speak on this? Quickly, and Ian George, quickly.
No, I've been given the look, so I'm definitely going to make it quick. But it's just about this idea of the subsidy, and I completely understand, you know, how it's come about, and Councillor Mann has explained very well. But is this a normal thing to do? Do other councils do this type of thing when they're in this type of situation? Are any other councils in this type of situation? Are we doing what we would be expected to do in a normal fashion?
Matthew Ethics and Ian Manders.
So through you, Chair, I mean, it's a startup business. So yes, in principle, this is very normal for a startup business that initially it doesn't have the customer base to do it. I suppose the answer to your question is different authorities approach it in different ways. At the moment, it's an unregulated market. So you will know there's examples all over the country of people being asked to pay that full recovery and people paying quite considerable sums. The difference here is, of course, is we're saying, well, that's not appropriate for all the reasons that Councillor Mann has outlined, and we should stick to something that's recognisable, hence recognition of the off-gem energy cap as what we think we should be pricing to, which gives rise to subsidy. There are examples where people do that as well. I think in truth, in this context, it's largely academic, as the report makes clear. This market is rapidly becoming regulated. In a couple of years' time, it will be fully regulated. All bills will be subject to the price capping of the day anyway. So really, you know, this is basically us looking 2 years, 18 months ahead and just making sure that we're in good order for when that change comes and acting accordingly. So in that instance, it's not going to be unusual, no.
Thank you. Councillor Manders, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just to add that I propose to officers that the council joins the heat trust, or joins up the district heat network to the heat trust, which is an industry founded consumer protection scheme for district heat network customers, and that will provide protection very similar to what happens in the wider regulatory world until full regulation comes in of district heat networks.
Thank you. Councillor George.
I will be quick. I just want to run it past to make sure that I understand this. So the price cap, I assume, is pretty general and something that perhaps I'm paying now or something along those lines. There's a deficit that the HRA will have to pay, some of it, and the rest of it, the council taxpayer, I'm imagining, which will be from the council. This is as I understand it. You can put me right in a minute. And then we can get that money back in the future because as things get cheaper. So does that money go back to the HRA and into the council coffers before you then set the next price cap?
I think we don't set the price cap.
No.
I think the government does that. So Matthew Essex.
And just because of what you just said, does that if there's going to be a price cap, does that mean we'll never get cheaper energy for people living on the estate? But it will be greener and
well, the rest of the country doesn't have Southwest London sewage, and that if we can get that prize, it will be cheap heat. But Matthew Essex.
So I think as the report makes clear, this is an early days issue because we've got, as Councillor Manager said, so few takers. So yes, to some of your questions, yes, the principle is that where we're planning to provide a subsidy, that's split between the tenures of the housing. So the affordable stock, that subsidy we picked up by the HRA is a cost to that. And in respect of the commercial stock we picked up by the general fund. So that obviously, you know this, that comes from a variety of sources, not just council tax, but if you want to simplify it, then yes. That really, when you look at the modelling, only applies for as long as we're in phase one. So as soon as we deliver a home or a block in phase two, we've got enough customers then to reach full cost recovery. Now, in truth, in future, there will be a pricing consideration to have because technically, once you reach that point, there's a conversation about the commerciality of the network and what is an appropriate return or not. Yeah, that's all future-looking stuff and will depend a large part on some of the points that Councillor Mann has made in his introduction in respect of heat sources, number of customers, the general market. But the protections we're putting in here, yes. So to your point about is this a number I would recognise from my bills? This is the number that will drive your bills at the moment. Yeah. So the off-gem price cap is across the land. So it's transparent, it's equitable, it moves. So obviously it runs off wholesale prices. So as they move globally, so the price cap moves nationally, and that will get transferred on to customers as well.
Thank you.
Okay, now are we ready to go to the vote on this one? Is it unanimous? Excellent. We're rapidly in the home straight here. I think we're just about there, aren't we? Urgent business. I haven't received any. Yeah, I'm down to here. I haven't got anything. Close of the meeting at 23:24.